It's the Literary License Podcast, Kings of Horror episodes, reading and digesting books from the masters of modern horror, and viewing the films. Your co-hosts tonight are Vicky Ray, Leandro Ghazi, Craig Johnson, David Grant, and Keith Shago, giving you a word by word, scene by scene, and everything in between, and everything in between, and everything in between, and everything in between, and everything in between.
Hello, welcome to Literary License Podcast and our opening for season 5. 5 years of the Literary License Podcast, and I'd like to thank all our listeners for joining us. And we have a full house today, and let's start out who's with us. We have Vicky Ray, our normal co-host. Hello, Vicky.
Hi, everybody.
Joe Randazzo, who flopped over from our 2-for-1 80s series. Hello, Joe.
Hey, everyone.
Leandro Ghazi, who's our normal podcast host for our books to screen or everything in between. Hello, Leandro.
Hi, Keith. How are you? How are everyone?
I'm good. And we have 2 new co-hosts with us, Craig Johnson and David Grant. Hello, Craig.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello, David.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
And we have 2 guest co-hosts with us, who I'm sure I'm going to try not to massacre their names, but
you will.
He's got about an Appalachian serial killer that's out available to buy now. And Jim, do you want to tell us a little bit about your book really quickly?
Yes, it's based on true events about America's first undocumented serial killer. He actually admitted on his deathbed that Matthias Schambach admitted on his deathbed that he murdered people on the mountain, and no one believed him because he was dying of dementia. However, when the next property owners bought the property in 1889, they discovered all 4 water wells on the property filled with human remains. Some were butchered and cooked. So I wrote the book, kind of like the movie Reverend and Silence of the Lambs in one, because it happened from 1850 to 1889.
That's wild.
And where would people be able to buy your book? Where is it available?
It's available at any bookstore worldwide. Amazon Books is the best. You can also purchase it at wasoklobooks.com. I'll help you with the spelling of that last name. It's WOSOCHLO, wasoklobooks.com.
And we'll have all that in our liner notes as well, in our show notes, which you'll find at the bottom of the page, wherever you're listening to, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, so on and so forth. And our other guest co-host is Barbara Sorry, Barbara. Barbara Venkataraman.
Yes, you got it. You did it.
It took me 3 years.
3 years. 3 years in, we got it. Yes. Hello, everybody. Hi, Barbara. Here.
And Barbara writes the Jamie Quinn mystery series that's available and out now. Do you want to tell anyone else what you're working on at the moment?
Well, there's 6 of those books, and I really have I have 22 books that include other things like a grammar book and a kid's book and a memoir that I wrote with my son about his 4-year quest to get posthumous pardons for the Groveland Four. That's called Accidental Activist Justice for the Groveland Four. And he actually, in Florida, 70 years after the fact, did get those pardons granted. It took a lot of work and a lot of people, but he did it. He was a college kid who didn't know anything, and he just said, I'm going to do this, and he did it. So that was an interesting book to help him write. And I just signed on with a publisher called Next Chapter. So my books are out there with new groovy covers.
All right.
They're a new publishing company. I've run across them actually. They've actually sent me a couple books to review. So
I like them. They're very efficient. They're very nice. So that's my newest thing. And right now I'm on a blog tour called Great Escapes Book Tour. So every day for the next week, I guess my books will be featured. Latest book will be featured somewhere, and there's giveaways and everything. So
very cool.
So that's fun. That's what I'm doing.
We'll have that information at the bottom of our show notes as well. So
great.
So now it's about what we've been up to. And let's figure out what each of us have been up to. And we'll start with Vicky. What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you, which is probably only a week ago?
I hate it when you ask me that all the time. My life is not that exciting in the summer. It's just a family kind of weekend thing going on. Just catching up on a lot of reading, lots and lots of reading, and just watching lots and lots of horror movies, reading novels. I was kind of hoping we get Matthew back on here. We're trying to always outgross each other, it seems, with who could see the nastiest horror flick lately. So we've been doing that. He actually has some very good suggestions. I really enjoy his reviews. They're pretty funny. But other than that, it's just been really kind of quiet and hot here in Texas.
And what about yourself, Joe? What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you, which was Godzilla?
Oh yeah.
Well, for the last week and a half, I've been mainly reading The Dead Zone when I'm not at work, and I rewatched the movie earlier this week. Started sending out some of the stuff that I've written that hasn't been picked up. I just decided let's send it out to competitions and see how it does. So yeah, the last week or so, I've spent a lot of money on submission fees, sending it out to film festivals. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just trying to break writer's block on two other projects that I've been working on for a couple of months.
And what about yourself, Barbara? What have you been up to for the last, I think it's been a couple months now, isn't it? I think we saw you for one of our classic novels.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in a time warp. Not that much. Just trying to catch up with this publisher. I have to write synopsis for everything, and I've got some projects started, but haven't been working on them because I've been trying to get this all together. So that's basically it. Last time we were on this call, I broke my rib. Did I tell you that?
You did what?
I broke my rib. So I'm sitting in this chair and my phone was over there and I thought, oh no, what if my phone rings and ruins the podcast? So I reach, I put all my weight on this arm and all of a sudden I get this piercing pain. I go,
oh man, it wouldn't have ruined the podcast. My dogs bark sometimes, I
broke my rib on a podcast. I don't know how I did it, but
anything could happen. Don't break bones. You're going to make a little noise. Don't get too crazy on us.
I am not moving this time. I'm just sitting here.
I'm surprised you didn't break a wrist because the book that I think that we covered was quite thick.
Yeah.
Yep. And what about yourself, Craig? Craig is an artist. What have you been up to, Craig?
Just been working and with me and David have got some photographs in a local restaurant in the Cup of Joy in East Finchley High Road in London, and that's going to be changed seasonally. But yeah, just it's basically there's some pictures of London landmarks, but also one of the Spriggan sculpture, which is I think it's an eater of child souls sculpture that's at Parkland Walk in Highgate, and I think it was in one of Stephen King's short stories called Crouch End.
Yeah, Crouch End.
So it's pretty cool.
What about you, David? Oh well, just been actually stuck on Trent, working up there. Just like kind of the Midland of England, and it's quite close to Liverpool. And it's just totally different. It's amazing me in England how the accents change like every 15, 20 miles, I don't know if it was in America, but, you go from London, it's like, and then you go like a little bit up to Liverpool, all right, everyone else, and then you get up Newcastle where I'm from, and nobody can understand what we're talking about. The Geordie accent.
I love the UK. I don't care what anybody says.
I love your country. I had a patient who contacted me from Yorkshire, and that poor guy. I mean, we had to transfer him to like 8 different people until we could find someone who could understand him. Because it reminded me of like Hot Fuzz, the farmer guy in Hot Fuzz, or something like that. We're like,
that's the one. That's exactly, you know. Yeah. It's just like a string of vowels.
I thought Wales had the really thick accent, though. Isn't it Wales?
I think Yorkshire, I think, is probably not the worst, but the hardest to understand. Because
I think Glasgow is pretty heavy. I mean,
Glasgow definitely is heavy.
No, yeah, it's like
I know, but I could listen to them for hours. I love Glasgow. I'm gonna go back.
You're not talking; you're just using your eyebrows. You know, it's good.
But you're right, though. That's funny.
I have a patient who has an Edinburgh accent, and because it's very sing-songy,
everybody's a pirate.
It puts me to sleep. It kind of lulls my
pirate.
Yeah. What?
Good.
What about yourself, Tim? What have you been up?
Sorry. I'm playing my guitar, and just I'm writing a couple of new songs and just getting them worked out. And, well, they're already in your head. Like, you know, I was talking to a friend about this, another musician, and I was saying, you know, this is like possession, you know. You know, you suddenly get possessed by music, you know, right? And I remember Mozart was talking about that, and it's like once you open that door up, it just comes flooding in, you know, and you can't stop it, you know. And it's really exciting, but like when you just want to watch the TV or, you know, go for a walk or something, that you've just got all this stuff cramming into your head, and you've got to sort it out, or else, you know. And it makes me think about, you know, like this is a gift, absolutely a gift from, I don't know where, you know, from another place altogether. As Leonora Carrington used to say about her paintings, you know, her daughter has come around. She says, oh, these are great, Mum. You know, she says, yeah, but she says, you know, it's not about money. This comes from a special place. And this is a gift from another part of the universe, you know. And I think music's the same, you know. I mean, great line from John Lennon, you know, nothing is real. It's starting to become relevant.
Just got to seize the moment.
Seize the moment. That's right. Carpe diem. Absolutely.
And what about yourself, Jim? What have you been up to?
After writing Appalachian, I am actually working on my 3rd novel. Unexhumed is my 2nd novel that is coming out now. It's about a Philadelphia ghost story that takes place over lifetimes, like sort of like a Nirvana reincarnation. But Appalachian kind of snowballed into a lot since I've released it last December. I shot a book teaser trailer for it, of which now got requested to be in Shock Fest Film Festival.
I watched that. That was good.
Oh, thank you. And it's also been in the Titan script writing contest. It's been entered in that as well, because I had a ghostwriter do a script. So, which kind of ties in with the Dead Zone, with the book and the contrast with the film, because I helped the ghostwriter write the script for my book, because like the Dead Zone, I see they cut out a lot of it in the film. And I didn't want that to happen to Appalachian, because with that novel, it's all about the Molly Maguires, the Irish mob that ran the coal mines in School County at the time is written into it. A lot of history is written into Appalachian. And each chapter has its own little segment of history, true history. And I didn't want it taken out. So, but I've been pretty busy with that. I mean, I'm getting tons and tons of phone calls daily about marketing, wanting to press this into a film. And, you know,
that's a good problem.
Yeah. But the problem is a lot of it is like over half of it is like scams and people trying to get me to, you know, they're not the right people is what I'm saying. Yes. So,
well, you're smart enough to know that they're not the right people. That's the important thing.
Yeah, but you know, they come at me and they say, "Look, for $6,000, we can, you know, to Universal and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Wait, if deals. Universal or Lionsgate wanted this so bad, they wouldn't be asking me to pay money."
Yeah,
exactly. So I get that a lot.
Mickey and I used to run a literature agency, so yeah, we were quite familiar with a lot of those scams coming out of the woodwork. And then when they contact you on LinkedIn, you're like, "What?" Okay.
Well, I'm kind of new to this game because Appalachian, believe it or not, is my first novel. So it's hard to get advice from other writers on this. It actually is.
Well, it's easy. We know lots of people you can network with.
We had 20 authors with us, and by the time we closed the agency, they were all signed to book deals. So,
sweet.
And some film deals and all the other stuff. If you ever need any, send me an email, and I'll tell you which way to go and what venue you need to do. So,
that'd be great. Thank you.
And what about yourself, Leandro? How's life with you?
I've been getting ready about work because I work in a school and the classes start next week. I've been working my allotment and the last few days reading. Yesterday I stayed until 3 a.m. in the morning to be able to read the book because my commitment was read the whole book for today. And I finished today at 12.
Oh, wow.
So I just slept 4 hours. But I'm all right.
You could always wing it, Leandro.
No. Not with this book. I wanted to read it all because I really like Stephen King, and I thought I want to read it, and I did. No, I really enjoyed the book.
Well,
basically, I've been doing this.
It's only 168 pages, so there you go. you'll get a bit of a reprieve next one.
There's like 600 pages on my Kindle. I love how your Kindle keeps going down. It keeps saying, you have 5 more hours. 5.5 hours. And it's just like, damn. It's like, don't remind me every time I go to another page.
So wait, a Kindle can actually tell you, based on, how fast you read, how much...
Yeah, it's weird.
So what was
I don't know. I have a really strange thing that I do, that every time I'm reading a book, I start to make the calculation how many pages are left. I don't know why.
You keep flipping through. You keep going. Don't be one of those. I'm going to the back of the book, people.
No, you could be an indexer in your past life.
We know what you people are like. Going to the back of the book first.
So what's the time estimate that it would give you for how many hours you're going to
spend? It gave me 7. Well, it gave me, when I got to past the 3rd chapter, it said 5.6 hours or something.
It's about 6.5 hour reading material for Dead Zone.
It was about 600 pages. It was a shorter one. I mean, it wasn't short thinner, but it was short.
It could be it or The Stand.
No, I read The Stand just so I could say I did years ago.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not doing The Stand ever again. So, but myself, I've been up to Money Heist started on Friday. Fantastic. If you're into that, it's now got a viewing figure of 6 billion people watching it across Netflix, across the world. So it's their highest rated programming. So the new season started of that, which is very good. I'm reviewing a book at the moment called Bombshell, written by a CIDC LAPD officer, which all about the murder of Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedy conspiracy, and all the paperwork and everything like that are being released in 2022. So
they are going to be released. They announced it yesterday, I believe. They're finally going to release all that stuff, and us conspiracy theorists are going to be either very happy or unhappy. I still got my ideas, though.
It's quite a good book. It's quite a good book, though. I highly recommend it. When I finish my review, of course, that will be up on our website and stuff like that, along with the other book reviews and stuff like that. But yeah, very easy. It's got facts, but it rolls around, and it's written in a very good way, and it kind of leads you up to it, and then it goes through it, and the different people, and how Peter Lawford basically broke on his deathbed about everything. And
he did he?
Yeah, so it was quite interesting. So I mean,
that's interesting. I don't have to read that now,
but it's not bad. And then I got Jim's book to read. That's my next book to read, and then after that, I'm reading about Crippen. So yeah, nothing good but a good old Victorian serial killer.
Crippen. Is that a true story or is it fiction?
True story.
Crippen. Why haven't I heard of this one?
I don't know. I mean, publishers send me books. They send me about 20 to 30 books a month.
I'm going to write it down.
So that's quite good.
I used to know this real life murderer who was called Steph Brizzy. In London, and basically he used to come to we did this mindfulness meditation group, on a Thursday, and he used to come along. He was like a social worker, so he'd come along with his
They're always social
bicycle.
workers, aren't they?
Do you think it's the workload? Do you think it's just the people they encounter? I mean, what is it?
He used to come with his fresh.
Dennis worked at the Hampton place in Camden, didn't he? So
who's that?
Dennis Nielsen. He's
Muswell Hill. Yeah, Muswell Hill. It was Cranley Gardens, you know, and yeah, really. I mean, again, he was flushing things down the drain, you know, and people were complaining. Obviously,
got caught.
Pretty disgusting.
Yeah, you're gonna dismember bodies. You might not want to, you might not want to flush them down when you're living in a bed sit in a house converted flat.
London is a weird place. I'll tell you, it's great. It's one of the most interesting places to live.
It is. It truly
it's really
is
special. I mean, I've been here a long time, 30 years, but still finding things out about it, you know. And we've been doing a blue plaque thing. Like at the beginning of the year, you know, going on with a friend of mine and at the Gabriella, and we just find all these, and it just leads you down all these other strange places, like, you know, and you find things out about people, and then you find out about another part of London that you haven't seen before, you know, because you tend to sort of, we're very, you know, closeted, like, you know, you tend to sort of go your little route, and, you know, I think that's really good. Like I was talking to Keith last night about joining you guys, it's like you're just meeting other people and hearing other views and, you know, seeing a little slice of another life. And it's nice that you will let us into your weird little worlds, and fantastic.
It is a weird little world. It gets strange.
We all have little weird worlds.
every little beautiful little village has got some.
Yes, got a little
the dark side.
Black story about
That's just the UK, though. That, and he's read the Appalachians. They got some messed up shit there too. or the Ozarks, you know, just north of us. I mean, there's stuff everywhere.
Or Vicky and my family tree.
Or that too. Or where we grew up. I mean, you know.
Boy, we'd like to go to New York one day. That sounds like a. I mean, you know.
we're the butthole. We're from the butthole of New York State. It's beautiful, but unlike yogurt, it does not have a living culture. So yeah, pretty though. Pretty. If you're into landscape and beauty, you're fine. If you're into culture, well, you probably come away.
Okay. No, it's just like, I mean, you know, I'm a bit of, you know, 60s, like, you know, the Chelsea Hotel, of course, and, you know, CBGBs and all this.
CBGBs, yeah.
CBGBs is long gone.
You know,
that's a blast for the past.
All the punk guys, all my friends, old punk guys, like, you know, Ramones are top, you know. Yeah. And there was always this argument between
Debbie Harry, all of them got their start there.
I was so disappointed growing up in New York and going back a couple of years ago and going back to that area, going back to the East Village, and it's just all corporate now. It's all high-end restaurants and everything that made that area unique is fucking gone.
It's gone.
I haven't been there in years.
You gotta blame Bette Midler and Disney. They ruined New York City.
You know, when Basquiat was, one of my favorite painters, Basquiat, and when we were living in the village, like, you know, they said there was nothing there. And during the 80s, there was a real recession, obviously, in America and in England, you know.
Right.
You know, but he said he couldn't believe it. And when they met Warhol, I don't think Warhol used him. I think he was a good friend of his, you know.
Right.
It's like, you know, maybe he was using him to sort of try and elevate himself to another position. But Basquiat, there was a great exhibition about 2 years ago in the Barbican, Keith, you know, and went down, like, and there was a fridge there, and Keith Haring and Basquiat and a few of the people around the time, like, just signed the name and done little pictures on this old Smeg fridge, you know. I just thought, I want it. It's just great, you know. Imagine open the door, like, you know, just going to see if there's any milk in so you can have my breakfast.
Well, this brings us to our Kings of Horror, which is going to be our theme for season 5, which is our book to film sequences of episodes that we'll do one per month. Of course, Kings of Horror, we're going to be dealing with some of the big names of horror, which will include Stephen King, Clive Barker, Dean Koontz, who's actually agreed to be on our program at some point. So we'll see how that interview goes. And of course, we're going to do some Japanese as well with the author Ringu and Battle Royale. So considering that Stephen King is like the gateway drug to horror, basically a lot of people have read Stephen King, and that's pretty much been the first book that would introduce them to horror. So what we're going to do before we go into the dead zone, we're going to go around to each of you and find out what your first Stephen King book was. Starting with you, Leandro, what was your first Stephen King book?
The first book that I read from Stephen King was called The Body. I was studying English in Argentina and in an institute, and we have to read that. It was a really interesting book. They made a movie. I think the movie is called Stand By Me.
Stand
By Me, yeah.
I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I always have, all the books that I have written from Stephen King, then you watch the movie and they're slightly different. But that was the first book, yeah.
And what about yourself, Jim? What was your first Stephen King book?
Believe it or not, it is The Dead Zone.
Oh,
wow.
So, yeah. I actually liked the book a lot. It had a lot of detail and a lot of similarities. I saw that with the way I write and Stephen King writes. He writes local. He writes about where he's from, the area, New Hampshire, Maine is where he lives, but I mean, it was nice to read a book because I'm from Pennsylvania and back east. I've been in New Hampshire and Maine quite a bit. And it was nice when I read the book that I see that he's writing towns that I would know, like I've been there. So like when I wrote Appalachian, obviously it's about the area where I grew up as well. So and the detail that he had in the book was pretty good, as in all his books. So,
yeah.
What about yourself, David? What's your first Stephen King novel that you read?
Well, actually, the first one is one my dad's a big Stephen King fan, and he had just finished Christine, and he says, "Oh, you should read this. It's really cool book, And I read it, it's just amazing. There's funny. I was just thinking the other day, there was a Family Guy. Craig was telling me that Stephen King got hit by a truck. Or something,
and his writing kind of went a little bit downward after that because he was a pitcher.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, well, Family Guy did guys, Family Guys, I love it. But there's one where he's walking down the road and he gets hit by the truck, and he's writing at the time, and he flies up in the air, falls onto the ground on his feet, and goes, "Finished." The novel was finished. I don't know if it's Seth MacFarlane again having a jab at everything. He's just a genius. But yeah, Christine, it was so good. And I couldn't put it. Actually, I remember, I think I tried to read, I think I read it in about a week. It was pretty slow, but, I was just reading it, going to work and coming back and that on the train or whatever it was, at the time. And but I enjoyed it, really cool. And you know the story. I think the movie's great, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's always more in the book. You can condense so much into the book, and the book allows you, it engages with your imagination. So you can see, at the time, it's funny, I didn't see it being that way in the movie, but you see your own version of Christine, your own version of the car, your own version of the kid who gets sort of pushed to the back of the queue all the time, And I think that's the trouble nowadays. I think there's so much visual stuff coming in all the time on the internet. People don't get a chance to engage with their own imagination, so it dies. And that's really sad.
What about yourself, Craig? What was your first Stephen King book?
My favourite Stephen King was Rose Madder.
Oh, yeah.
Where this lady, Rosie Daniels, she finds this old painting called the Rose Madder, and there's something like supernatural about it. But at the same time, she's going through a lot of domestic violence with her husband, who is it gears towards that he's the devil and he's after her, and then the cop is getting really near the truth to try and unravel the truth, and it was just, I just couldn't put it down. It was just brilliant. I might even possibly start reading it again because it was really, really good, and you really sense the fear and the danger that the lady's in throughout the novel.
Yeah, you're right.
I remember, Matt, we discussed that during our interview, and I'd sit there and say that when you mentioned that, it's like all the imagery and everything from that book actually entered my brain. I haven't thought about that book for years, but when she said that, it has left an impression. I actually have the hardback downstairs as another thing. I was going through my Stephen. I was like, oh, I got quite a few Stephen Kings here. So.
It's got a nice cover as well. It's like the one I've got. We've had like playing cards embossed, and it's quite a beautiful cover. But it's only a softback, the one I've got.
And what about yourself, Barbara? What was your first Stephen King novel?
Carrie.
Ah, yeah.
That was actually his first book, too.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with how he got the high school girl thing down. But then I read later in his book on writing that his wife helped him. But, you know, the high school angst and the mean girls, man, he got it down. And
small schools in New England.
Yeah, and for every problem, she really got her revenge, didn't she?
I also think that with Carrie, Stephen King actually broke the writing narrative that I don't think I've ever read before, where basically it was all told through interviews and newspaper articles and magazine articles. Yeah. And I thought that was a clever way, which, you know, when we go into Dead Zone, he has a habit of doing this, touching on that again, which he hasn't done since Carrie, sort of thing.
Yeah. But he was living in poverty when he finally sold that for 6 figures. But
yeah,
I learned that later.
But he was a struggling artist for a while, wasn't he?
Really was.
Yeah.
So
what about yourself, Joe? What's your first Stephen King novel?
Well, the first one I actually didn't finish it because my parents would get like all these hand-me-down books from like my cousins and stuff, and the only Stephen King novel that we had was The Stand. And I'm like 10, 11 years old trying to crack that open and trying to get through it. And it was not going to happen. That was my first attempt at Stephen King. I don't remember if I ever actually finished anything until The Dead Zone this week. I don't think I've finished anything else he's ever written all the way through.
Sacrilege.
Terrible. To be fair, I think I was turned off on Stephen King because I watched a lot of the movies that were based on Stephen King.
And was it Maximum Overdrive that turned you off of him?
Oh yeah.
God.
Probably Sleepwalkers and the Tommy Knockers. Maximum Overdrive
to turn me off.
Maximum Overdrive in retrospect is so batshit crazy that you kind of have to love it. But I think watching like a lot of the 90s made-for-TV movies probably made me go, wow, this guy's stuff really sucks. And it wasn't until later on that I realized, wait a second, okay, it's the films that suck, maybe not so much the novels.
Yeah,
because when it's done well, you start to see what a genius he was. When it's not done well, which is most of the movies, I see why he doesn't like a lot of them.
Yeah. When you get to see Drew Barrymore with, you know, the wind blowing behind her hair and being backlit and she's fire starting things, it's like, yeah, sometimes it can put you off a bit of a Stephen King book to film sort of thing. What about yourself, Vix? What's your first Stephen King novel?
I think it was Salem's Lot or Thinner, but I'm pretty sure it was Salem's Lot because I couldn't put that one down. I don't know why. I liked vampires. I always still like vampires. And because I went to college in New Hampshire and I was there for 4 years and I traveled out throughout New England. So I knew a lot of these places he was talking about, you know, and he came to our school and talked to us one time. So that was really cool. But I think pretty sure it was Salem's Lot. I would still reread it today. I love that story. I loved this made for TV movie, much to everybody's chagrin. I actually thought it was good. I don't know about the newer ones or anything, but the one with was it David Soul?
There's a new movie in the pipeline coming from the makers of It, so that should be out next year.
I liked the old It too. Don't hurt me, but I liked the older one. Yeah. The new one was kind of cool. Had the clown. I mean, he was definitely paralyzingly scary, you know. But I just like Tim Curry. I just like the beep beep, and the.
Well,
I love Tim Curry's facial gestures. You just can't, beat it.
I think the problem with it is anytime you're going to film it, the problem with it is that the interesting stuff is with the kids, which is always the first part. Then the adults are kind of boring, and then you have they
all float down here.
Stephen King's later work suffers from, I don't know how I'm going to end this, so they always have kind of weak endings, and unfortunately, it's part of the weak ending sides of his.
It's kind of lame, but I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean,
A mocking turtle that basically is overseeing the world and eating the universe is kind of a bit hard. It's going to always be a hard thing to film, isn't it? So,
I guess.
My first book was Salem's Lot. My cousin, I was really into Shirley Jackson, and I was reading a lot of Edgar Allan Poe and stuff. And she, for my birthday, she bought me Salem's Lot.
It's a great book.
And loved it. And then I started reading Stephen King. When he was writing one book a year, I was keeping up with him quite well. Then when he got to about 3 to 6 books a year, that's when I kind of fell off him a little bit. I think Tommyknockers unfortunately pushed me to the point where I stopped reading him for a while. But I did.
Yeah.
And I still have it. I still pick it up periodically. It's like me, most of my friends are really big fans of the movie Gladiator. I don't get it. It's not for me. I don't know what it is.
I like that movie.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I don't like it. Same thing like the piano. A lot of people love piano, but the thing is about every 3 or 4 years, I'll try to rewatch it and see if what everyone loves, maybe what I'm missing.
Right.
Tommyknockers is like me. Every 3 to 4 years, I pick it up, start reading this. I'm like, no, I can't do this. But saying that, I have read
it's not.
Okay, so in the case of the Tommyknockers, it's not just the movie that's terrible.
No.
The movie sucks balls. The
movie's awful.
I think it was an ABC TV movie of the week.
Yeah,
I don't think they made that. No, they couldn't have made that. It couldn't have been ABC that did.
It was a mini series. Tommyknockers was, and had Jimmy Smith from LA Law in it. So you're going kind of on a downward spiral from there. So. This brings us to The Dead Zone, which is a science fiction thriller written by Stephen King, published in 1979. The story follows Johnny Smith, who awakens from a coma of nearly 5 years and apparently is a result of a brain damage, now experiences clairvoyant and precognitive visions triggered by touch. When some information is blocked from his perception, John refers to that information as being trapped in the part of his brain that is permanently damaged, the dead zone. The novel also follows the serial killer in Castle Rock and the life of rising politician Greg Stilson, both of whom are evils Johnny must eventually face. Though earlier King books were successful, The Dead Zone was the first of his novels to rank among the 10 best-selling novels of the year in the United States. The book was nominated for a Locust Award in 1980 and was dedicated to King's son, Owen King. The Dead Zone is the first story of King to feature the fictional town of Castle Rock, which serves as a setting of several later stories and is referenced in others, and of course that he would blow up during Needful Things. The TV series Castle Rock takes place in this fictional town and makes references to The Strangler when Johnny helped track down in the Dead Zone. The Dead Zone is King's 7th novel and the 5th under his own name. The book spawned a 1983 film adaptation as well as a television series. So what we're going to do is cut to the synopsis of The Dead Zone. We'll be right back to discuss the book, The Dead Zone. The Dead Zone by Stephen King. As a child in 1953, Johnny Smith falls unconscious while ice skating, then mumbles a prophetic warning to an adult who later suffers an accident. In an unconnected incident, a young, emotionally troubled door-to-door Bible salesman named Greg Stilson vindictively kicks a dog to death. By 1970, Johnny is a high school teacher in the small town of Cleavesville, Maine, with a new girlfriend named Sarah. After winning repeatedly at a carnival Wheel of Fortune, Johnny is involved in a car accident and falls into a coma. Waking up over 4 years later, Johnny finds that he has suffered a neuro injury, with one part of the brain seriously damaged, making it a dead zone. As if to compensate, other parts of his brain now show heightened activity. As a result, Johnny sometimes experiences clairvoyant visions when touching people and objects. After helping various people, Johnny becomes frustrated by sensationalistic media reports of his supposed psychic talents. After Johnny rejects a lucrative offer from a tabloid reporter, Richard Dees, to run fake predictions under his name, Dees' paper denounces him as a fraud. Relieved, Johnny hopes to resume a normal life as a teacher despite ongoing severe headaches. The community fears him, but Sarah visits. She and Johnny consummate the romance, but Sarah then makes it clear that she has a new life with her husband Walt and their child. Sheriff George Bannerman of Castle Rock
asks Johnny to help catch a local serial killer. After a 9-year-old girl is murdered, Johnny investigates and reluctantly identifies the Castle Rock Strangler as Bannerman's deputy, Frank Dodd, who commits suicide after leaving a confession. As Johnny feared, the incident reignites the public's interest in his power, and he is seen as too controversial to return to teaching. Greg Stilson is now a successful businessman and mayor of Ridgway, New Hampshire, threatens to kill the people he bullies if they reveal his actions or don't aid him. In 1976, he wins a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives as an independent, having blackmailed a local businessman into raising funds for him. Johnny becomes a private tutor to a teenage boy in Ridgway and develops an interest in politics. He meets Stilson and is horrified to see a vision of an older Stilson, now president, causing a worldwide nuclear conflict. As Johnny's health worsens, he contemplates Stilson's presidency, comparing his dilemma to someone with the ability to time travel having the opportunity to kill Hitler in 1932. Rather than assassinate Stilson to ensure the vision does not come true, Johnny procrastinates, becomes of doubt in his vision, his adherence to murder, and his belief that there is no urgent need to act immediately, since he has met an FBI agent investigating Stilson as a possible threat. The FBI agent is killed by a car bomb. Meanwhile, Johnny's warnings that a disaster will occur at his pupils' graduation party are ignored by some, leading to several deaths. Now believing he must take more decisive action to prevent nuclear war, and learning his headaches are the result of a brain tumor, Johnny buys a rifle to kill Stilson. As the next rally, Stilson begins his speech, and Johnny shoots from the balcony. He misses and is wounded by guards. Stilson grabs a young child and holds him up as a human shield. A bystander photographer photographs Stilson's act. Unable to shoot a child, Johnny is shot twice by the bodyguards. He falls off the balcony, mortally wounded. Dying, Johnny touches Stilson a final time. He feels only dwindling impressions, but knows that the terrible future has been prevented. When published, the picture of Stilson using a child as a shield ends his political career. An epilogue interspersed excerpts of letters from Johnny to his loved ones, a Q&A transcript of the purported Senate committee, chaired by real-life Maine Senator William Cohen, investigation of Johnny's attempt to assassinate Stilson, and a narrative of Sarah's visit to Johnny's grave. Sarah feels a brief moment of psychic contact with Johnny's spirit and comforted. She drives away.
Hello, welcome back to Literary Legends Podcast, and we're discussing The Dead Zone from 1979, written by Stephen King. And starting with you, Barbara, what's your thoughts of The Dead Zone?
Well, there was a lot going on, you know. I mean, I thought it was a little dated. I don't know, I guess because of some of the slang he used and everything. But, you know, I liked Johnny and I liked Sarah. The religious mother was really just like a paper doll. She just didn't have any personality. She wasn't a full-blown character. So I found her kind of annoying. But, I mean, we could have seen less of her and still gotten the picture, which is what they did in the movie. And I appreciate it.
I live in the Bible Belt. Preach it, lady. Preach it.
But it was just, she was really a caricature. I mean, she really didn't have anything else besides that religious fervor. And then the other thing, I think Greg Stilson was a little too evil. I mean, I thought we kind of got hit over the head with his, you know, he did this evil thing, he did that evil thing, he did this evil thing. Like, you know, less might have been more, you know what I mean? But
the dog was my undoing. I don't care if you kill people, don't kill the dog.
Yeah, don't kill the dog. Right. So there was just a lot of, I kind of thought, extraneous gore that just didn't really add to it. I mean, I get, you know, it's a horror story and all that, but I didn't think it added to, you know, we got it. He's a bad guy. He does evil things. You know, how many times do we have to see him do evil things? But other than that, you know, I thought it was cool. It seemed like at some point he could see what was currently happening. Then he could see what was going to happen, you know, so, and then he could actually transfer that by touching the person. They could see what he was seeing. So it seemed like the power was changing or evolving or something. But, you know, I thought it's kind of like the Jesus story where he had to sacrifice himself for the greater good, you know.
Right.
I thought it was, you know, it was good. It's just a little longer than it needed to be.
And what about yourself, Joe? What are your initial thoughts of The Dead Zone?
Well, The Dead Zone, it was kind of in a way my introduction to David Cronenberg, and then I'd seen the movie long before I read the novel, and in watching the movie and then reading the novel in the same week, I'm starting to see like a lot of tropes that Stephen King uses a lot. Like Barbara just mentioned, the super religious mother. And as far as the dog being kicked, I watched an interview with Stephen King yesterday where he was discussing the Dead Zone, and he mentioned that is the wow, I'm sorry guys, my brain's a little fried from all the work I've been doing lately, but he mentions that is the point that everybody like brings up to him, is like those are all the letters and everything that he's gotten over the years. That's the like crossover point that everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe he killed that dog. That's like the moment that like everyone can't believe. It is interesting that his stories, they're really like they're really like
themes,
small.
don't you think?
He does it a lot. Yeah, he uses a lot of themes over and over. The thing that always stands out to me is how his stories are always very small. They're always very like for stories that are so long, they all take place in the same region, and it does sort of feel kind of local in a way. And I'm not really used to that, because I'm used to when I'm reading something, like a lot of times I'm reading something that's like bigger in scope. So it's kind of interesting. It kind of lulls you in and kind of comforts you at some points, because you kind of get the small town vibe from it. I always think of
Stephen King as your grandfather's in a rocking chair on the porch, and he's going to tell you a story.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Like I said, this is my first Stephen King novel that I've finished. So like I'm getting a lot of like like a lot of like mixed up stuff, because sometimes I'm reading this and then going back and thinking of some of the movies that I've seen of his work, and I'm kind of now curious to go read a lot of his other novels to see if they all kind of have these similar themes that just always seem to permeate through everything. Like he seems to always have issue with religious extremists.
Mommy issues.
Maybe mommy issues. I haven't seen that as much.
A lot of his mothers are either overbearing or they're non-existent.
He does seem to have an issue with religious extremists. I've seen that in a lot of the movies based on his, and I don't know. I'm definitely the mother in Carrie. The mother in Carrie and the mother in this, Greg Stilson's mother, seem really similar.
So did Johnny's mother. They were all kind of, you know.
Yeah. That's
but you know, it was the murderer's mother that was really out there with the clothespin and all that other stuff. So there were some bad moms in this.
Ouch.
Oh my God. Wow. Now that you think of it, all three
I thought the clothespin would stick in y'all's head, especially the male reader. Okay.
I didn't even notice.
Some people pay for that privilege, Vicky.
What?
Some people will pay for that privilege if you know where the right place to go.
That's true. There's a market for everything.
There's a market.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, all the mothers in this one. All the mothers in this one were Maybe there is something inherent in some kind of mommy issues in Stephen King.
Well, we do know that Stephen King's father was absent, and he has a very, very close relationship with his mother, which when you see the mothers that he writes about, it's kind of bizarre that some of them are quite horrific sort of thing.
Like Carrie Fisher, but Carrie's mom. And
but considering that he has such love and admiration for his mother, and he had very, very close relationship, because it was him and his mother, and they were like them against the world sort of situation.
Yeah.
So it is kind of bizarre that when he writes about mothers, that sometimes that this does come through. So I'm hoping he's not basing it on anything personal. So
I mean, I don't know if he was that close to his mother, it might be that he's kind of seeing like where other children strayed is because their mothers weren't as strong as him. I don't know. I mean, this is
close to his mother.
This is something that
every boy's best friend is their mother.
Well, who was that? Somebody else said something about that too. You got The Shine too. The mother, was it not Shelley Duvall.
The mother was a victim of an abusive relationship, so that's a bit different sort of thing.
Yeah.
What about the mother on Dr. Sleep? I guess it was Stan's mom or something like that. She was quite bizarre too.
Yeah, and if you look at Eddie Kubrick's mother in
Yeah.
Oh, very overbearing. She kept wanting to put him on medication that he didn't need.
Oh, that's what I meant. That was the it. That's right.
Chosen by proxy, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, Vicky? What are your thoughts about Dead Zone?
I loved this book. I hadn't read it before, but I had seen the movie several times back in the day, but I rewatched the movie. I was kind of sad that the movie didn't pick up on certain nuances that the book had, because I think that when you leave it out of the movie, it kind of leaves some kind of void in there where, well, there's something missing here, but I can't put my finger on it. But I mean, I was like reading all the research, and I go through other people's, their what they think of certain movies and certain books and whatnot. And the one thing that I did see is that everybody was really, the epilogue would have really gone good in the movie, I think, because the epilogue, like I said, I finally finished the last chapter before, we came on, because I fell asleep last night. But the epilogue, was really sad. I thought it was tear-jerkingly sad, because I felt really bad for Sarah, because they really did care about each other. And then you see that theme of the Wheel of Fortune kind of throughout the whole book. It seems like the first chapter in the Wheel of Fortune sets it up, because it really is spinning the wheel throughout the whole book. What would you do? If you knew Hitler was going to rise, would you go back and kill Hitler? Which I think normal people would go back and kill Hitler, So, and then he found out he was done. Well, I would.
With that argument about going back, and let's sit there and say that you kill Hitler. If you did go back and kill Hitler, you would have a different world than what.
Well, you would. I mean, it's
mean that it's better or worse. It's just going.
Well, yeah, you can't screw with history. I'm imagining, because then you're going to set up another chain of events, because that's just the way of the world. But I thought it was a really sad story, because this guy all he wanted was happiness and love and family and everything. And just because of that one weird, one of those weird, he should have just spent the night with her and not gotten the damn cab. It would have all been solved. Just stay, go get yourself a piece of tail. Don't get the cab. But no, he had to be all whatever, go on, get the cab.
That's what happened.
Had he not done that, then we would have had a nuclear holocaust.
Then we would have had a nuclear holocaust had she not eaten that hot dog. I know.
But yeah, that's. I suppose I should probably save this comment for the movie. But the movie just kind of cuts off. Like Vicky said, the epilogue is completely gone.
Yeah, I wish they would have kept the epilogue in the movie, because I thought it was and I was like, this is really sad. It's like I was telling Keith before y'all got on, I go, the end was sad, because I felt bad for him. I really did. It sucked. He really just and those letters he wrote his father and Sarah were just really sad, and they were heartfelt and stuff, because this guy he knew he was going to die, and he knew this guy was going to be the first one to start nuclear annihilation, and so he goes, well, what else do I got? I might as well kill him. And then he holds up the baby, poor Martin Sheen. That's all I think of when I was reading that, was Martin Sheen holding that baby up from the movie, it's like, that right there, but it did ruin his career either way. So he did achieve his end. I loved it.
What about yourself, Leandro? What are your thoughts about Dead Zone?
Well, I really enjoyed it. That's why I wanted to read it all. About what we were chatting about, I imagine that must be some things that are repeated, like the mother, in Carrie, and they're both they believe in God, but it's what's the name? When you're too much, right? But at the same time, I think, maybe he's trying in that way to describe how is the people in that place where the story is happening, I think that there was one part that I think after Johnny was born, the mom wanted to have more kids, but they couldn't. and I think that affected her a lot. That's why then she turned into God, and she was really like, in a way, I think like ignorant because she can be tricked really easily, like brainwashed.
Oh God, you don't. There's people that looked at my Instagram that got really triggered religiously. I had to deal with that because it's a joke. People do get upset easy.
I think what you also need to realize also is that whenever people do two things when they go through a drama or a trauma.
Right, that's true.
And they do one or two things. They go against God, or they go 100% towards God. Mm-hmm. I get this when I deal with patients in ICU and patients who are, I get it when patients are diagnosed with some of the diagnoses that I see patients for. And one or two things happen. They either break away from religion altogether, or they encompass religion like 100%. And the thing about, it's a bit like, there's a classic saying that as far as society is concerned, that it's better to have an ideology than a belief, because it's easier to change someone's ideology than it is to change someone's belief system.
But don't you think her religious fervor had a certain place in the novel because she kept telling him that God had a purpose for him? Maybe that purpose was to see this Stilson for what he was and to take him out so that there wouldn't be a nuclear war,
Well, the thing about this also is that how much of this is destiny and how much of it is man's will. And that's pretty much what the Dead Zone is pretty much revolves around.
Yeah. And also his mom said like kind of not to run away from that kind of gift that he had. I really liked it. Was like to me when I was reading it, like a big question about like if, like for example, what would have happened if he wouldn't have had the accident, or if several things. And I really like when he said to her, well, we made what the best we could, and that's like what they did, what they could with what would happen, and the choice that they can make. When I reached the third part, for me was a bit too much, like a bit tedious. It was explaining all that thing about politics. I think it was too much in detail.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time on that. But I think I think it just showed Johnny's interest, why he got interested in politics. And I think he was just going out and meeting politicians for shits and giggles, wasn't he?
Well, but I also have to think that you also have to look at the time that this is written as well. And at that time,
the 70s,
70s, and we're coming out of the Vietnam War. Politics,
Nixon had to resign.
Nixon. Then we had Carter and Ford and all that kind of stuff. We had the energy crisis in 74 as well. And so this book is a big mirror up at that time sort of thing. And it got to the point where in America, for the first time, well, not for the first time, but it was that big prevalent that we were getting these third-party candidates coming forward who were kind of coming like, not from the family of politics that we were experiencing, but politicians who are coming out from the grass level roots. And I think that's what the Dead Zone is kind of exploring those at the moment. Of course, we see this a lot more in the 80s, 90s, and so on and so forth. But the time this was written, this was kind of a new thing for American politics. And what he said about the Maine, the Maine governor at the time, he was from a third party. So this was also going on. So I think Dead Zone is a reflection of the politics that were changing at that time.
The Dead Zone is supposed to be that part in his head that doesn't work anymore, right? And then the brain supposedly just wraps around it and finds other ways. But that was back then when they said we only use 10% of our brain, right? But I think that we don't think that anymore, do we?
Well, there's one part that he explained that like
I've been on social media a lot less.
Just wondering.
The Dead Zone in his head was that damage that he had the first time when he hit the ice when he was a kid. And I think that was the main. Well, he explained that. I really like the part when he started to mix letters and what the people were saying in between. No, I really enjoyed it. And I have kind of like a self-meter about books and movies. If it make me cry, it's good. Because to me, it means like it touched you in some way. And no, I really, really, really enjoyed it.
I thought the end was sad. The epilogue, I did. It was sad. I mean, I was really like choking up reading it. I was really not expecting that. As I was telling Keith, I was reading the end of the book and I started crying. It's just like, it was sad.
What about yourself, Craig? What's your thoughts of Dead Zone?
What I agree with what you guys said about the overbearing mother, but I've always found in Stephen King that there's always like an issue, like daddy issues. But now it makes sense when you said about his father not being.
Yeah, that's true.
Because straight away I think of the scary father in Creepshow at the beginning with the. Who finds the comics in the trash can?
Oh, I know. Was it Atkins? What's his name?
Yes, Tom Atkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the guy in The Shining and the other. So, yeah.
That's true. He has daddy issues.
I thought it was a really evocative book, quite nostalgic as well. The Hitler scene was probably one of my favorite parts. It really got my mind thinking, like, and I was like questioning, what would you do in that situation? You know, it's really clever. When he says Hitler, what about Hitler? Well, suppose you could hop into a time machine and go back to the year 1932 in Germany, and suppose you came across Hitler. Would you kill him or would you let him live? But
well, you look like Charlie Chaplin at the time, you know, so you probably wouldn't, you know.
Right. So, but with the movie, I like the sense, the foreboding, the threat, and the vulnerability that was created, because you knew something was coming and something was going to happen, and it really set the tone for the book. And obviously, in the film, it was reflected in the film. But I think in the film, things happen very quickly, sort of thing. So it was nice to have like the build up in the chapters in the book that may have been lost in the movie slightly. But yeah, just even the vulnerability, the feeling that this guy, he had this accident and you can see him being rehabilitated, for example, and you get that in Misery, you know, when the poor guy.
Poor guy. That guy was just screwed from the get-go.
Here's a nice typewriter for you to have a fun with.
Oh, yeah. After I hobble you and break your ankles and whatnot.
I'll let me pick
it don't get where Misery is such a perfect title for that book. It really is.
But loved it really. And it's the first time I've read this one.
But I think, like I say, with the book, I think when my dad had nearly all the Stephen King, and he was a big fan of like a lot of sort of horror and you know, esoteric stuff. He liked Lovecraft and people like this. You know, the old man was quite an interesting, you know, literary guy. You know, very. It's funny when you guys are talking, like I was thinking, you have to transcend your parents, because, you know, I don't do anything that my parents do. You know, I'm a musician and I'm a builder, you know, and they never did anything like that. So it's great. And I think you make a choice really early on. And with this Johnny character was like, he seemed to like Vicky was saying, he was caught in this, almost like he wanted to please everyone, you know. I got that feeling from him, like he wanted to please his parents, you know, but he couldn't do that. But, and also there was a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, you know. Was it Nevermore, Keith? Because you might be more of a.
It was from The Raven, wasn't it?
From The Raven. Oh gosh, okay, right. Yeah. Because I'm thinking about, there was an old Hammer horror. I think it was Vincent Price.
Yeah.
You know, oh genius.
Very much so.
Like Boris Karloff, you know, and some people. Leonora was one of the girls. I think that was his wife. I'm getting off the track now, like, but
that's all right. We do that all the time.
Because in the TV series Castle Rock, the ravens keep falling out of the sky as well. So I don't know if
that's a reference.
I'm not sure, but
that's interesting.
But it's a bit like Midsummer Murders, really, because I said to David, like, the death count is pretty high in Castle. You
want to watch Midsummer Murders? There can't be anybody left in the village.
We gotta keep a watch on that death count.
There's one guy left, like the postman back. Hi, I'm still here. Hi guys.
Well, it's really interesting. When I was in university, I was studying. Well, one of the subject was history of the world, and we were talking about the Second World War, and I couldn't understand. I actually asked the professor how that happened, that Hitler got to power, because I didn't know. Have a vague idea, but not really. And then she said something really interesting. She said, "Look, you have to understand that thing happened, that he was able to get in power because all the society was pushing to kind of like explode, to someone go there and like kind of basically there were all revolutions in other countries around Germany, right? And she said, look, it was going to happen. Maybe it wasn't Hitler, was going to be another person, another party, but the thing was going to explode because it was too much tension going on. And I think kind of he saw the opportunity to install all his ideas, right? And I don't know, it was really interesting. And also in the book, he said, well, yes, I will go and kill Hitler if I know that then I can come back to the present, because if he would have stayed there, someone from the party, maybe if he would have killed that person, and someone else would have take the place.
It's kind of like a Hydra. Basically, if you cut the head of a Hydra, sometimes you get two to replace it, and sometimes you're better off with the one evil person and two evil people. But I mean, another thing is
Germany was really mad at the time, though, because they had disbanded all their military, and the
whole world was going through an economic depression as well. Germany was going through an economic depression. Unfortunately, Hitler got them out of the economic depression at that time.
Hitler was also a very good speaker.
He was a magical orator.
Very good speaker. He told everybody basically what they needed or wanted to hear.
Wanted is probably better.
After World War I, Germany had surrendered. They had to sign down their military to the Allies.
They were mad.
Yes. However, they were going through a depression, and when Hitler wrote the book "My Kampf," was my struggle when he was in prison as World War I. He wrote that book, and it basically was what people of Germany wanted to hear, and that's how he started to come into power.
Yes.
He's a very good speaker.
That's the thing. If you could start scapegoating people and start telling people that their problems are not because of anything they did, but the problems of the outside group. Then you're going to be able to attain power that way, and Hitler saw that.
Yeah, he did.
But isn't that what politics is? Isn't politics always bring one set of people down to bring other people up?
Yeah.
Whether you're looking at politics today, it doesn't matter what country you're in. It's like
seems to be a game.
And it's always unfortunately, when it comes to society, the one thing that humans have actually ruined the human race forevermore, and they'll never get over that, is their ego. So basically, what you do is you have to keep rebuilding your ego, and how to rebuild your ego by putting something else down, and you make something else a ego. And we see it today in the victimhood culture that we're in. Basically, everyone's a victim, but the thing is, you have to take some responsibility for the decisions that you make. If you do not take responsibility, same thing like, okay, if you go to, if you decide to take a shortcut in a dark park and you get mugged. Now, you should not, in a brilliant society, you should not get mugged, okay? But at the same time, you get mugged, you have to take some responsibility for making that decision. I'm not saying you have to take all responsibility, but you have to take a little bit of responsibility for the decision.
Yep,
absolutely. If you blame everything else around you for the bad decision making that you make, then what happens is that you look for scapegoats to sit there and not take responsibility.
Wasn't my fault. He did it. He made me do it.
We should all go into our child ego and then just blame our parents.
That's my Kaiji 101.
I blame my parents for everything.
You know what I heard? I heard a joke that said, Freud said, if it's not one thing, it's your mother.
Yeah, there you go. Words to live by.
And that can link right back to the dead zone.
David likes it anyway.
What about yourself, Jim? What are your thoughts about Dead Zone?
We were just kind of brushing across to it. One thing I liked, the Dead Zone, it was long. I did not like the breaks with the chapter with the Laughing Tiger, the way he brought that in there, because it really hits you head on with a lot of politics there.
He did.
And with Stephen King, I follow him on Twitter, on my Twitter page. I have a Facebook page for my books as well. But I follow Stephen King on Twitter. And with this last election that we had here in the United States, he every day had posted some sort of political outbursts, his thoughts and things like that. And I could see he's always been like that with Reading the Stand, that was written in 1983. You could, with this Greg Stilson, you could see how Stephen King, he does not trust government. And there's always a conspiracy. Anymore. Yeah, there seems to be always a conspiracy with government. Obviously, for a long time, he has not trust government. So I don't know if any of you follow him on Twitter now, but if you do, you can see that he constantly has comments about politics.
Well, a lot of them do. Twitter is not for the faint of heart. I only stick to podcast stuff on Twitter. I don't delve in the realm of politics on Twitter because you're going to get eviscerated one way or the other.
Yes.
Just stay out of it. Stay out of the fray. But a lot of them are like that, though. But I mean, they got a platform. They want to voice their opinion.
Yeah. But you can see that he has voiced his opinion in.
Well, he's a hippie as well.
He's got a good sense of humor because he clicked like on one of my pictures of a little pug dog with a yellow rain jacket coming out of a drain. The kid with a sailboat.
It's great.
From it.
It's a little pug
dog with a hoodie on.
Oh, really? I got to follow you on Twitter, I guess.
I like what Craig had to say earlier with you form your own opinion of all the characters in the book in your own mind and visualize the scenarios that are happening in the story. It's just so disappointing that when I read the book, this comes true to the fact that most people say, read the book first before you see the movie.
Absolutely.
Because this is a classic example. This Dead Zone is a classic example of that because there was a lot of story in there that was not in the movie.
Totally lost in the shuffle. Yeah. Totally. Right. Yeah. I mean, it would have made more sense had he had the brain tumor probably in the movie.
Yeah.
I think what you have to look at the Dead Zone basically is that, first of all, there is a trope that Stephen King hasn't added to this. No one's a writer. Because normally writers, Dark Half or Salem's Lot or so on and so forth, sort of thing. But I think what makes the Dead Zone kind of an odd novel, especially the first, if you look at what he wrote before this is his seventh novel. It's the first one to hit the top 10. But there are like shades of Carrie in there along the way the Carrie's written basically with your interviews and your newspaper articles and stuff like that. So we got that framework going on here. But Dead Zone is probably more of an episodic adventure sort of thing. So basically we got Johnny Smith, the early years. Johnny Smith, I'm gonna lose my virginity to this girl here. We're gonna go to the fair and we're gonna do a little foreshadowing here with the Wheel of Fortune. And the mask that scares her, which is the Two-Face mask, which brings to Johnny later in. Then we got the coma years. And then after the coma years, then we got Johnny putting his life back together again, sort of thing, with the supernatural popped in there with his new, with his heightened, he already had the being able to see the future anyway, but this is basically now it's heightened now because of the second accident he had. So then we kind of have those years. Meanwhile, we kind of got the Stilson story popping in here, sort of thing. And the Sarah storyline is kind of an odd thing because there's a longing there for him. But to be honest, and though in the book it might seem sad that this could be Sarah, this could be the life that could be. But you also have to remember that at the beginning of the novel, when Sarah's meeting him, they just started dating. They haven't been dating for long, and basically she's had an abusive relationship. And then while she'd broken off with this one, she kind of dated this person. And, she wasn't a virgin sort of thing, but she basically, was kind of didn't trust men very much sort of thing. So then she meets Johnny and she's like, well, maybe I'm going to let Johnny have have a bit of sex sort of thing and see where this goes. And then, of course, the accident happens. So basically, for Sarah's character, you're never quite sure, is Johnny the love of her life? We don't know. It sounds like she got...
Well, it seems like it throughout the novel, don't you think?
Not really, because if you place it in realistic terms sort of thing, Johnny is what could have been, but then she gets married, and then she finds herself in domestic ho-hum sort of thing. Basically, she's no longer teaching, she's raising kids, she's a housewife now. So Johnny could be like, this is the when your life becomes normal, and this is your normalcy sort of thing, and you settle down into domestic, whatever domestic this is the one that may have got away and what could have been. Doesn't necessarily mean this is the love of your life as far as Sarah is concerned. Johnny felt deeper for Sarah anyway. So you get that Johnny's love for Sarah is a lot deeper, because you have to remember that Johnny's missing 4.5 years of his life. So when he wakes up, those 4.5 years. It's
like yesterday for him.
Yeah.
It's the Rip Van Winkle effect, basically.
Yeah.
Sort
of. That was a great.
We kind of get that thing, and then we get the the parent situation, whether he should accept this is a tool of God, is this his destiny, or does he want to be something else? And we get that kind of section. Meanwhile, we get the political thing underscoring it. Then we get, of course, Castle Rock, which brings him back to the media forum sort of thing, because he kept finds the killer. And then we got him dealing with that side of it, and then trying to go for a lower life sort of thing. And then, of course, it ends with with the politicians and the worlds colliding with each other. And basically, he decides he's going to make a stand. Now, the question that you have to ask in Dead Zone is Johnny a Messiah figure? Is that the case? If he's the Messiah, like Jesus Christ is considered the Messiah, so therefore he has to die on the cross in order to make the world a better place, and God can forgive everyone, because before that, God hated everyone. If you were against him, he's pissed off. Then in the New Testament, God's like, oh, I'll forgive everyone. So you have this Messiah thing going on for Johnny. So basically, they decide, is Johnny the Messiah? So is this his destiny? And basically, this is the road he's been on since birth? Or are these conscious decisions that Johnny's making to make the world a better place, to become a martyr? So is Johnny a Messiah character built from God, or is he a martyr? And that's pretty much what the Dead Zone pretty much asks itself all the way through. Now, the question basically is, if he's a martyr situation, then basically he was put on this world basically to make decisions, and he decided to sacrifice himself to make a better world. But if he is destiny, and he is from God, and this is God's will, and he basically had no control of his destiny, the shooting of Stilson means that would have happened anyway, and Johnny's the tool of making the world a better place.
Calvinism.
What if anybody's seen it?
What the Dead Zone pretty much asked all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's Calvinism, where you don't have a choice. It's predestination. Right. But the one thing that I forgot to mention, which is in the book and the movie, is when his mom, right before she dies, is because she was watching him on TV, and he feels responsible for her death. And that is why he feels like, he's not religious at all. He just feels like he has to do what his mom asked him to do, because it was her dying wish. I think that they saved that into the movie that was in the book. And so I think that's a real big factor, because he's not really the self-sacrificing type.
He doesn't appear to be, does he?
No.
He's not the kind of person who gets involved. He's a watcher from the distance. He watches, observes. He doesn't get involved. And the problematic thing about Johnny is that when he does get involved, he can't deal with the fact that he got involved. When it comes down to the prom fire situation, with another prom fire, another prom fire happens, and he's not happy with that. So he goes off, he moves away, and basically when he helps the nurse save her family, the burning house, again, he breaks down, pulls away, but it keeps bringing him back. No matter what happens, he keeps being drawn back.
Well, it's burdensome for him, I believe. He doesn't want the burden of this sight thing that he has.
Is it the burden or the responsibility?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a curse.
Well, yeah, it is like a curse to him, but it's like, that's like being an empath, isn't it? Really, I guess, of the first stages of empathy. Like whatever. It's
like he always have that power. the thing is like, because he got that accident, and then when he woke up, he realized that she carried on with her life. I saw it like, well, he have to do something with his life, and for a moment he didn't want to use his power. He didn't want to help anyone, but then he started to realize that if he was not going to do anything, people were going to die, and he was able to see what was going to happen. And there was a part that he was saying that if he would have gone and let the people in the party know that there was going to be a fire, he could have saved them. And then he started to kind of think one way and the other. And then he said, well, I couldn't have saved them all. Probably I saved the people who saved was the people who wanted to be saved, let's say. And this is like what Keith is saying about the responsibility. You know, I mean, you can't save someone that doesn't want to be saved, no matter what you want to do.
Well, the whole book's based around religion. You have the religion of Johnny's mother's religion. Politics is a religion. Yeah. Politics is a religion, no matter what side of the fence you're weighing yourself in. But people, like a religion, are very, very passionate, and you're never going to change a person's mind, whatever their political standings are. Whatever anyone's religious standings are, and they got strong beliefs in that religious standing, you're not going to change their mind. So basically, everything's about stuff like based around religions, basically. So you got
that plays on beliefs when with the kid in the ice rink, when he's and the son is scared and doesn't, because he believes that will happen, but the father's like, oh no, that's not going to happen. Crazy. I'm going to take you to the game, sort of thing.
Yeah, don't be a softie.
It's like a play on beliefs.
And but I mean, beliefs are just what somebody told you.
And also you got to remember that John, the crash of the cab in the book, that wasn't the first time he saw the guy who bumped into him on the ice when he was a little boy. He sits there and said that basically, beware the black ice, beware the black ice. Face is melting, sort of thing. And basically that's what happens. Right. So he does have this gift before that hand. And then what we also get is Johnny using this gift. And what's the evil thing what's the root of all evil? For money purposes. Mm-hmm. So we got Johnny using his gift as a wheel of fortune to basically get money, use the money sort of thing, which is the prime of all evil sort of thing. So therefore, Johnny's committed a sin. So therefore, gets there, comes back, and then he has to pay back for the sin. So, and you have to remember that I'm not quite sure what Stephen King's religious background is, but there's always a religion that plays through it. The Stand, we have Randall Flagg. Right. Randall Flagg is pretty much Greg Stilson sort of thing. You also have the religion of, and you also always have the godlike figure or the good people sort of thing, which in The Stand, the good people will settle in Boulder, and we have, Mama Abigail there, and she's the good, the religious symbol, and then we have the evil stuff going into the Sin City, which is Vegas sort of thing, and we have in The Stand. We have that in Carrie as well. We have the good girl in Carrie, who is the one who survives. Susan Snell survives in Carrie. She's the good one, always trying to do good. And then Carrie is basically a person who's caught between destiny and also caught between what she is, and then the religious mother, and then the high school and society. Religion and society, she's caught between these two things. We get the same thing at Salem's Lot, where basically we got Father Callahan coming forward sort of thing. So the religious thing in Stephen King's novels are quite the norm at the moment. I haven't read his new stuff at all. I've kind of dropped off. I did read Dr. Sleep, but I haven't read his stuff for a good 15 to 20 years. Kind of, left him by the wayside. But his early works all have this stuff. Even The Shining, there is a bit of good versus evil. And,
right.
Yes. And this is what makes Stephen King.
He has a lot of nods to his other books and stuff like Carrie and The Shining. And what was the other one? Cujo, I think. Or Cujo Cujo makes a nod to this.
But you also have to remember with Stephen King as well that after The Dead Zone, he became an alcoholic. So a lot of those books, Cujo, Christine, and so forth, he doesn't remember writing them.
You must have missed that interview.
He's very, I'm just going to go get some whiskey. That Cemetery he doesn't remember writing.
Yeah, he really did have a bad problem. He had a bad problem.
It was alcohol and prescription drugs, I believe, was there. So a lot of these books after Dead Zone is what will start. This is what's going to make Stephen King. This is what's making his name, and this is what makes him the Stephen King we know today. This is the crime. Then by the time it comes from, he is the number one horror writer of all time. He's written, and probably the number one author of all time. He's probably sold more books. I think he sold more books than Gone with the Wind at this time. And he's almost, now we got someone who's actually sold more books than the Bible has. This is the we have today. Yeah. At this time, he was growing up, and then we do have the years where he doesn't remember writing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You can't remember it.
He's doing an Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
And then when he gets life back together again, and then what we got to do is, he's writing, and then he gets hit by a truck, and we get to Stephen King for years, where every book has a really bitter, horrible nastiness to it. Books like The Cell and things like that come through.
Which book was that, Keith?
The books that he came out with after he was hit by a car, they got bitter. Now what's happened is he's kind of gotten over that. And now we got the new Search of King, which is not really horror anymore. We got King, the mystery thriller writer now.
Right. And Owen King's doing...
Well, The Dead Zone really isn't a horror story. It's kind of a sci-fi thriller, don't you think?
Yeah.
There's a lot of his stuff that I see doesn't really fall into the horror realm anymore.
I mean, this is his every man with a supernatural. And there are films that, there are books of his that kind of follow this. We have Carrie, which is, small town girl with special gift. We have Firestarter, runaway, small town girl with a Firestarter gift. We got the Dead Zone, small town boy. And then we also get other characters within his books that basically do have some kind of sixth sense or something like that does weave its way through a lot of his books. So the question basically is, with The Dead Zone, would you recommend this to read to anyone? Starting with you, Craig. Would you recommend this book to anyone?
Yeah, it was an enjoyable read, so I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
What about yourself, David?
Yeah, definitely. Just anybody reading anything at the moment is great. Physically reading a book.
Yes.
It's one of the greatest things on the tube. You get on and you see somebody reading a book, I just think this is fab. Because most people just got their faces in the piece of plastic and that's it,
Jim, would you make this a recommended read?
Sorry?
I say, Jim, would you make this a recommended read?
Yes, I would. I'd make it a recommended read. Basically because there's so much detail into the book. There's more of the story into the book. It's like a lot of his movies, the way he wrote The Shining, he wasn't happy with the way the movie was portrayed out about his father. Was actually an alcoholic, and he didn't like the way they made the father in the book of The Shining to make it seem that way as well. There was a couple things he didn't like about how the book was turned over to film in a lot of his novels. But this one here, with all the detail, there's a lot more than just one story going on at one time in here. I recommend it as a good read for anybody. Like I said, it was one of my first reads of Stephen King's. It's more like a sci-fi, not like a horror, like the werewolf. What's the Silver Bullet? Yeah, Silver Bullet. I liked Cat's Eye. I liked a lot of Stephen King books, but this one here was long, like I said, and it was full of a lot of detail. I mean, a lot of stories were going on at once.
He does like his detail, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He likes it. With the Stilson's bodyguards, they were a motorcycle gang in the book, but in the movie, they look like mobsters from New York City.
Yeah.
There was so much differences in this.
Scorsese wasn't making a movie, so his extras needed a job, and David Cronenberg hired them.
Yeah.
So... and I got, basically the same thing with Appalachian. I wrote the book. I was told that it was too long to fit into a 2-hour segment for a film. So I had my ghostwriter write a cut down version, which they had to cut out some of the chapters to fit it into a 2-hour film. But then I said, what about a mini series? I want you to write the whole thing out. exactly the way I want. That way, in case someone wants to pick it up as a miniseries, nothing's cut out. It's the way I wanted it. So
all matters.
Yes.
Stick to your guns.
Well, I try.
What about yourself, Leandro? What are your thoughts about? Would you recommend Dead Zone as a book to read?
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is the third book that I read from Stephen King. The second one was It, and I enjoyed this one. I really recommend it to someone that if someone wants just to start to read it, and then has never read Stephen King before, definitely I would recommend this one just to start. I really enjoyed, how he writes and explains with details the places, the situations that you can picture in your mind. And yeah, definitely I will recommend it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Leonardo on that. When I was reading the novel itself, I mean, I was young, very young. I was in grade school when this, at the time this novel was written, and Stephen King wrote in history about Ford and all. With the Hell's Angels at the Jagger concert. Rolling Stone concert. I mean, that all brought back memory for me. Like, I remember when that happened. I remember Reagan. I remember Ford. I remember Jimmy Carter coming in. So that's what I liked about the book, like what Leonardo just said. A lot of history written in it.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Barbara? Would you recommend The Dead Zone?
I'm always an outlier. I have to say, first of all, my attention span has gotten shorter and shorter every year. I don't know why. And I just found there was too much detail. There was too many, like I said, okay, Stilson's evil. How many times do you have to show us he's evil? I mean, how many times do you have to show us the mom is a religious nut? It was just like too much for me. I mean, I would still recommend it, but I found it was a little long, a little all over the place, and a little bit too much detail. I just didn't really want to. I just didn't need. I felt like, okay, I get it. It's like, okay, let's go. So I don't know. It wasn't my favorite Stephen King book. I don't think it's just too long for me.
And what about yourself, Vix? What are your thoughts? Would you recommend?
I'm trying to think of a Stephen King book that isn't got too much detail or isn't too long most of the time, besides Thinner or another one. I can't remember it right off.
The body's really.
Dolores Claiborne was pretty long too, I think.
But I think all his books are really big. Like It is huge. It's like a Bible.
Yeah, well, I did read it too. I don't know. There's sort of like challenges.
The State Building, you can kill someone with it.
That's true. You could definitely hurt somebody with a stand. But no, I actually thought this book was really good. I mean, I liked how he gets into the heads of the killer, because when he's making that transaction between psychic from the other person, like the Leonard Nimoy mind meld or whatever it is he's doing with them, you're getting flashes. Like the serial killer, that was pretty gruesome, 9-year-old kid, and they don't spare you too much detail on that for the most part. And it's like, who wouldn't grimace at something like that? That's cringeworthy completely. But I like how he gets into people's heads, sort of like Cujo, the book. I mean, that gets into the dog's head, which the film never does. But I mean, it's just vintage Stephen King, lots of detail all over the place.
What about yourself, Joe? Would you recommend this book?
I definitely would. It's because I like the detail. I like all the detail in it. The only issue that I have with it is, like you said, it is episodic, and it's a style of writing that I'm generally not drawn to. Is when you have all these little mini stories in it, because I kind of like the idea of having like a through line of the story, which I guess in this case would just be
continuity, maybe.
Himself. Yeah, but it's actually it's the same point I'm about to get into when we discuss the movie too, because it just felt like there's there's different beginnings, middles, and endings throughout, and that's it's not a style that's appealing to me. If we're going to do a comparison, I think the novel does it better, which I guess is generally going to be the case. But yeah, I guess I just prefer my stories to be like just one long, coherent narrative, and all these little bits just kind of come in, and I don't know. So would I recommend it? Definitely. It just because it's not my style or my preferred style doesn't mean that it's not something that's
right.
That's good and enjoyable. I think it's very enjoyable. There are points, like Barbara said, where maybe it felt like there was a little beating over the head. Like, okay, how many times can you tell me this person's evil? But that being said, there were a lot of moments that were missing from the movie, which we'll get to in a minute, that I think would have improved the movie.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting what you said, because it's like when I was reading, I was confused because, okay, wait, one chapter is one person, one story, then jumps to another one. I said, well, okay, but this is not related. And then I said, well, let's carry on reading. And then I like how because there were different things that maybe were happening at the same time, and how he then connected all at the end. I think it was really, really clever doing that.
Now, as far as The Dead Zone, I enjoyed The Dead Zone. I think it's a good book. It doesn't stand up to my favorites, which happen to be Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining. I love the golden age of Stephen King. That's my highlight of Stephen King. What I have to sit there and say about The Dead Zone is probably his first book that deals with a long time span sort of thing. Normally what he writes about all takes place in a very short time period. Whether it's Carrie takes place over a couple months. The Stand takes place over 6 months sort of thing, but they're dealing with so many different characters, so many moving parts there that, by the time everything comes together, you're kind of moved from one story to the next as it carries on, which he would use again in It. But if you look at Cujo takes place over a weekend sort of thing. And I think The Dead Zone is probably his first novel that he actually carries over a larger time frame sort of thing.
Base time.
And I think that's probably the reason why it's episodic. I think that there are other authors that kind of are able to do that and blend that a little bit better. John Irving keeps all his stuff pretty much suited in the same area sort of thing, but he writes long time frames, but he has this really weird way of like blending, going back and forth while you're going through this person's life the whole time. You're in the present, you're going to the past, and you're in the middle. Back and forth. Where I think that the reason why it's episodic is that basically you come in at Johnny and basically you're watching Johnny and you're going through the years. And if you look at your life yourself, your life is nothing but a series of episodes anyway.
That's true.
So I guess that's probably why it feels so episodic, but I would recommend The Dead Zone. I'm not sure if it would be the first book. I would say my first book, if you want to get into Stephen King, would probably be Salem's Lot for me. I think that's the first book I would say.
Salem's Lot was an easy read. For Stephen King, it was.
Yeah. And, but I do think that Dead Zone's very, very important for a book. Almost, I guess, up there with like Catcher the Rye or something like that. And the reason why I say that, because it is a book about an era in American history that was going on at the time that was going on, sort of thing. And it's a good reflection of that time. And I remember growing up during that time. I remember the peanut farmer president and the health crisis and the Nixon and and all that stuff going on. And I remember all that. So it's kind of nice that when I'm reading it, I have something to refer back to. So that's why I like this. Now, if you're a new reader or a young reader, it'd be quite interesting to think about all these political references and these things that are going on in American history at that point in time. Are they able to understand everything?
Might not resonate really well, no.
Yeah, because he doesn't give a lot of explanation why this stuff is happening, so you don't get the backstory story. But if you were there, you kind of know this automatically, sort of thing, because you're living it. You lived it, sort of thing. So that brings us to The Dead Zone, the film, which is a 1983 American science fiction thriller film directed by David Cronenberg. The screenplay by Jeffrey Boam is based on the 1979 novel of the same name by Stephen King. The film stars Christopher Walken, Brooke Adams, Tom Skerritt, Herbert Lom, Martin Sheen, Anthony Zerbe, and Colleen Dewhurst. In the novel, the phrase Dead Zone refers to the part of Johnny Smith's brain that is irreplaceably damaged, as we discussed. And basically, the film would do very, very well. But the main adaptation. If you want to see the main adaptation for The Dead Zone, the book, you should watch the 2-hour adaptation that was made into a TV series starring Anthony Michael Hall. So what we're going to do is cut to the trailer of The Dead Zone and be right back.
You've been in a coma, Johnny.
For how long?
5 years.
The house is burning. Your daughter's in the house. It's not too late.
You're the talk of the town.
Because I got my head bashed in and I'm still here to talk about it.
Because you have the power of second sight.
I don't know whether it's true or not, these psychic powers of yours. No, I'm at my wit's end, John. I could use your help. It has to do with these murders we've been having. The Castle Rock killer.
I saw his face.
Just thought I'd stop by here on my way to the U.S. Senate.
Greg Stillson.
He's dangerous.
If you could go back in time before Hitler came to power, knowing what you know now, would you kill him?
I would kill him.
You'd never get away alive.
It doesn't matter.
I'm not crazy, you know.
Those headaches are getting worse, aren't they? As the visions grow stronger and more powerful, so the body weakens.
God has seen fit to bless you with this gift. You should use it.
Bless me.
Not only can you see the future,
I can change it.
Hello, welcome back to Literary License Podcast. We're discussing The Dead Zone, the 1983 film, and starting with you, Jim. What are your thoughts of the film, The Dead Zone?
I like the film. Reading the book, though, I like when they're at the amusement park. There's really, you don't see nobody there, but the guy who's tending the roller coaster.
Right.
So they're on the roller coaster by themselves in the front, and he comes up with one of the headaches, and they did not have the Wheel of Fortune in the beginning of that started it all. I did like the film, and I probably would have liked it a lot more if I didn't read the book first.
Yeah.
But for example, the accident when he's in the novel, he's in the taxi talking to a taxi driver sitting in the front seat, and he flies through the front of the windshield. I thought that would have been more of a portrayal of how he got the head injury than crashing into a milk truck.
Yeah.
And sliding down the road.
And his VW Beetle.
Yeah, his little Beetle. I would have crushed that little Beetle.
I know. It's like that would have been toast, really.
You can't crush the Beatles, you know. I
mean, just to digress a little bit. But, I grew up on a farm, and we had a great big Saint Bernard dog. And it got hit by a
Cujo.
Volkswagen Beetle, and everyone died. We'd like. I know that's a horrible story, but carry on. Sorry, I had that's nothing to do with Dead Zone, by the way, but it's
But like with catching the murderer, I mean, some parts did come in close to what the novel did, but there was more than one murder, and in the film we got to see only one killing, even though they said there were so many killings. And Alma was actually the first victim in the book, not the last one.
Right.
So I know they had to slim it down to fit it all into an hour, like an hour and a half film at that time, or 2-hour film. But they could have put more of that in there. Maybe left out more of the politics of Stilson.
True.
So I think that was a lot more better of a story of him catching the murderer, and then than it was with Stilson. And at the ending of the story, Sarah wasn't even there in the novel when the assassination attempt happened, and it was a different lady with a different child. But I mean, it did tie it all back in together then, and it seemed in the movie, it showed that Sarah had more of a relationship with Johnny than than she did within the book, I guess, because she, as he died at the end of the movie, she's hanging over the top of him and kissing him goodbye as he dies.
Right.
So, but with the book to film, with his mother's death, they pretty much stuck to the same story on that. As Barbara, I remember Barbara saying that beforehand. They did stick to some of it, but a lot they didn't.
The beginning of the movie is pacing. Maybe you can answer this for me, because for some reason I'm blanking out on this. Did Johnny and Sarah have sex before he driven off in his Beetle into that fateful night, or did they just say goodbye?
No,
I don't think they did.
No, they did not.
He wanted to wait.
It's only because Johnny says one thing that I found quite weird in the movie. And the thing is, I saw the movie when it came out, and I enjoyed it. But there's something that always kind of struck me, because he goes, "How old's the child?" Like he thought that he might be the dad or something. It was kind of a weird thing. And then
maybe, yeah.
And then after that, I kind of questioned myself, like, did they actually have sex before he went off on that stormy night or not? Because he asked that question. I was like, there's a book, but they don't. And then
she wasn't sick in the movie either. She got sick in the.
Yeah, she got sick in the book. And back to you, Keith, on that with the pregnancy. When Herb was getting remarried in the novel, Sarah showed up with Walt, and she had little Danny there with him, but Johnny also noticed that she was pregnant with pregnant, and that's where I think you can get that question from, because she had an affair with him after his surgeries, and he was after his accident, and I could see where you could think that because she's standing there, and he's thinking, "Wait, it's not even been a year, and we made love. Is that possibly my baby?" You know. I could see where you could come with that in the novel, but not in the movie.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering. It's only because he says that after, like, when he's bringing my, they bring child over, and she comes to his bedside when he wakes up, and he goes, "Oh, I've had a child," and he's like asking questions about how old the child is. Like, well, that's a bit bizarre.
I actually thought that was leading up to that, but it never happened.
Yeah,
I got the vibe from that it was.
Did I miss something? So I think, am I getting the book messed up with the film, or vice versa?
I got the vibe from that it was more trying to figure out, like, how long did it take before you moved on? Maybe that's why he was asking.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he does feel kind of abandoned. Because he wakes up, and to him, like I think Vicky said earlier, it feels like yesterday. But
it's like yesterday.
He's married. She has kids now. What happened? How long was I out?
Well, did you hear his mother? She goes, "She's abandoned you."
That's the thing. The mother plants that idea in there. But at the same time, guy's in a coma for 5 years. I get the whole idea of standing by and waiting, but there's a chance he may never come out of this. Was this woman who's, 20s
who went on 2 dates with Johnny?
Yeah. Was she supposed to just wait there for the rest of her life by his bedside? Like, what did you want?
He didn't meet the parents, so he was in the coma. So he never even met them.
Joe, you're right about that, because in the novel, it makes it look like they're both okay with it. Vera and Herb were okay with it, but in the movie, Vera is not okay with it, but Herb is. So I could see.
I mean, Sarah's a brave hussy, isn't she? Not to stand by her boy.
Yeah.
Herb gets remarried after the old lady dies, too.
Giving it out to all the country boys. Won't stand by my boy's bedside.
It does say something about the mother's repression, that she's like, well, you went out with him a couple times. Well, that's it. That's your man for the rest of that's your woman for the rest of her life. Like, this woman in her 20s went on 2 dates. Now she's supposed to wait the rest of her life to see if this guy happens to come out of a coma. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, after they say the movie does paint their relationship like this long. Because the thing is, the movie, basically we see Sarah and Johnny in the movie. Basically, it's like they're both teaching at the same same school. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to take you somewhere special tonight, sort of thing. So you don't know how long the relationship is at all in the movie.
That's true. Right. Yeah, in the movie, it does seem like the relationship might have been longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is where doing both in 1 week, you just kind of conflate everything. That's true. The movie does paint a picture like they were together for a while.
Yeah, so you're never quite sure. And another thing is that, and the mother's not overly religious. She's just like, she's like my grandparents back home. I mean, well, they were religious, but they weren't like
crazy.
Bible and slapping you with it. I can see your dirty pillow slapping you upside the head every time you do something
dirty
wrong.
Pillows. Your dirty pillows are showing.
Mildly religious in the movie. You know, she believes in God, and that's pretty much it. She's not going to push her. You know, God has a message for you, and that's about it. It's a bit like basically it's like when someone that you know has like an accident or something like that, and they go, well, don't worry, God will see you through. It's kind of like that. They don't mean like this is God's will. You know what I mean? It
literally
kind of more like that in the movie than it does in the book.
What do y'all think of Christopher Walken as the choice of actor for Johnny?
Perfect, I think.
I thought it was interesting that Stephen King wanted Bill Murray. I was thinking, Bill Murray.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah. Bill Murray would be great. You know.
Well, David Cronenberg wanted the Castle Rock murderer to play Johnny. That's who his first choice was.
Yeah. The Castle Rock murderer.
Dodd.
Oh, okay.
I thought David Cronenberg would have wanted James Woods to play
James
Johnny.
Woods would have been good.
You know, the funny thing about the Dark Zone, the Dead Zone as well that I found, and the cut that I have at the moment, when I saw this at the movie theater in the first VHS, because I used to have this on VHS back in the day, that when the killer gets caught and he's in the bathroom and he goes down on the scissors,
right?
That basically you saw him go down the scissors and the scissors used to come out like Kiss. I noticed they now cut that in my version. Was it in any of your versions?
It wasn't in mine.
I closed my eyes.
There's a problem with the censors at that moment.
This could be one of those Texas Chainsaw Massacre moments where, like, a lot of people insist that they saw.
No, I took my VHS and it's in the VHS.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, where basically when he brings his head down, you see the scissors actually going in.
I didn't think my version had that.
Yeah,
I was watching it on DVD. I did not see that.
Yeah, because I remember seeing it at the movie theaters going, God, I remember that being more graphic. And I was like, okay. And I dragged out my plugged in my VCR, which is never plugged in, and found the videotape. And I stuck it in there. I was like, yeah, it was there. So I know I wasn't dreaming it. Because, you know, sometimes you think, am I dreaming? Did I dream that? Or and then when I watched it again on the DVD,
right?
I knew there was a bizarre cut there. There's kind of like boop, boop. Not like a...
You know what I hadn't realized, though, is that a lot of these books, I guess I just didn't pay attention when I was younger, crazy kid. But I didn't realize how many of these books got banned or were not allowed in libraries and things until I started starting looking up stuff and reading about it. And it's like, I had no idea. I knew that a lot of people, I went to Catholic school for 10 years before I forced my mother to send me to public school. I was going to quit. But, they wouldn't have books like that. And then, you know how you occasionally get excited. You find that the Lisa Bright and Dark book hidden in the corner, it's like, all right.
That was mandatory reading about a teenage girl who basically commits suicide by the end of it, no matter what help she got.
Yeah.
That was mandatory reading in my school.
I just... Right now, like Craig said something about James Woods possibly playing Johnny, and now I can't get the image of a coked up James Woods fast talking, grabbing Brooke Adams and slapping her for leaving, because that's what James Woods would do.
Yeah, like the James Woods, like that was an
James Woods would be grabbing her, like, what do you mean? I was only undercover for 4 years.
Yeah,
you abandoned me,
you bastard.
Like the Against All Odds, James Woods.
This watch. Yeah, it's just.
I know. I'm actually ready for the Walkenisms to come in through his acting in this, but we kept it quite down. We got it in the classroom scene when he's reading Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
Edgar Allan Poe could have played Johnny. I mean, that would have even been cooler.
The other interesting thing when I was watching it with my roommate, and he brought up they're doing the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That's what they're covering. And Christopher Walken does end up playing the Headless Horseman later on.
Yeah. He's a scary Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
looks positively evil in that, the teeth especially. And then the way he grabs the witch or whatever, he's just going to take her right with him. He was evil in that. I loved it.
Yeah. It always looks like he's going to punch someone on the nose all the time.
Oh, I know. I love how, he's good in anything he does, like when he does, like his classic stint in SNL when he's doing, the Don't Fear the Reaper, the more cowbell thing. That is just epic, more cowbell. So I always think of Christopher Walken. I think of more cowbell.
But the interesting thing is, this is Christopher Walken post-Oscar before he became self-parody, because the self-parody would come about a decade later.
Right.
So this was right in that point where he was just a great actor.
Yeah. Truly.
I think another thing that's you can look at Dead Zone is this is David Cronenberg's first American film made with American money. Everything before this was Canadian.
Right.
And of course, Videodrome came out the same year, was Canadian. It's not an American film, it's a Canadian film with James Wood.
This one
still sickens me, that film, but we'll be covering it in a couple of weeks. But
this was when I rented the VHS tape in the 90s. This was my first Cronenberg movie, and it's really an outlier when you look at a lot of his films during that time. I mean, it does still deal with kind of the body horror that Cronenberg does, but not like in this case. It's kind of brain trauma and stuff like that, not the physical body horror that we're used to with like Shivers and all those movies. So this was kind of strange. I keep reminding myself that this was Cronenberg.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I have a question for you.
I think Dead Zone feels
don't you think the scene at the end with the tutor, the Chris, actually it was Chris in the film, but Chuck in the book. But don't you think it would have been a better, more dramatic part of the film at the end there if it was the lightning striking the restaurant with all the individuals that died there as compared to the kids falling through the ice?
That's the 7 seconds of film that they didn't even include in the movie. I mean, they said Christopher Walken was there for that, to film that part of the movie. It was a 7-second whatever part of the movie. They had him there for 3 days and they didn't even put it in the film.
Oh wow.
What I think it is that I don't understand why they took a high school senior and traded him for a pre-puberty child with a bowl cut. Nothing's worse than an American child in a movie with a bowl cut, but this is what we got.
But that was back in the day, though. Everybody had a bowl cut back then.
But it got. I mean, in the book, I don't understand why they would change that, because this character, who's growing to be an adult, but then again, we don't get Johnny after that series in the book happens. Johnny runs off to Arizona to find his life, and then basically it's the communication that he's having with his pupil going back and forth, and that's of course that relationship's totally wiped out, sort of thing. So we kind of get this movie of the week, like afternoon school special child sort of thing, and kind of like, I hope he's like, no, daddy, I don't want to play hockey. His friends died. And
the kid in this one seemed more like a plot device.
Plot device.
Yeah, he seemed more like a plot device in this, because in the novel you see Johnny start to develop an interest in politics. It's like the kid here is just like the wedge to like.
Yeah, bring it.
It's how we're going to introduce him, and it doesn't like.
Well, the father.
I know a lot of you guys said it feels like a lot of it's glossed over in the movie.
Well, the father figure is different as well, because the thing is, he sees Stilson as a clown, but he likes the theatrics of it all and everything like this. So he's not against Stilson or anything like this. Here, he's adamantly against Stilson. Oh, we got to stop Stilson. We got to stop him in his tracks. He's evil. So I think this is what we get from the father. But in the book, he's not like that at all. He finds Stilson as the clown.
Well, it's because in the movie you need to move it forward, because you gotta get it in quick. You got to get it in under 2 hours, which to me, that's my big issue with the movie. And again, this is strictly a preference of mine, not necessarily right or wrong. It's still a great movie. I felt like maybe you should have if you're going to do a 2-hour movie based on this novel, you should have chosen. Are they going to do him going after the Castle Rock killer? Are they going to do the whole thing with Stilson? Because the whole thing we don't see Stilson until 65 minutes into the movie or so. We hear him mentioned when the reporter talks about it, but we don't see him until 65 minutes in the movie, and he ends up being, the quote unquote big bad. We don't get him getting the vision of Stilson launching the nukes until like 15 minutes before the movie's over.
Right.
So it just feels like the whole thing's really rushed because it seems like they were trying to get all this stuff from the novel into the movie. And I feel like that did a disservice to it. Because I feel like had we instead done an 1.5-hour movie about the Castle Rock killer, an 1.5-hour movie about Stilson, an 1.5-hour movie, whatever.
Episodic then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, like to me, this style doesn't appeal to me. Doesn't mean it can't be done well. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean this can't be a great movie. It just felt
the pacing. The pacing was off because
the pacing was definitely off.
They spent too much time on some things and too little time on other things.
Exactly.
I appreciated in the movie that they cut the mother's religiosity down. They encapsulated it. I appreciated that we didn't get a lot of Stilson, but we didn't get enough Stilson. There was nothing about Stilson until, all of a sudden here's this bad guy. And it was really played like a caricature, and I feel like the mom was too. I mean, no bad guy is all bad. No religious crazy is just all crazy. I mean, they're just a cardboard cutout to me. That was the problem I had. I did think Christopher Walken did a really good job. I think he can play wounded and beleaguered and everything. I mean, he seemed like, in love and whatever. When he said, "Leave me alone," I got it. He really sold it. He wanted to be left alone. But it just felt stilted. They didn't pace it right. That's what I think.
I think what they had to do with the film, because I don't know, I haven't read the screenplay. I don't know what the screenplay was. I mean, I see what we see, but I think what Cronenberg did well in the film was basically got actors that basically you saw them and you believe their likability of their characters through who the actor was. Like Colleen Dewhurst, you don't get a lot about her character, but when she comes on the screen, he's like, this is a presence to be reckoned with. And then when you get, Brooke Adams as Sarah, it's all because Brooke Adams is a very likable actress. It's like you like her. It doesn't matter what she does. She could be stabbing you with a pair of scissors and you still like her because she's one of these kind of actresses. You got Halbert Lam, who's basically, the psychiatrist. Well, he plays a psychiatrist in almost everything. And it's very good, but I found that we kind of had the only way that we could figure out anything about these characters in this movie is by clever, very good casting. Because it's not because these people are no one was typecasted. They're all typecasted. No one was casted against type, were they? Tom Skerritt always plays the good-hearted sheriff guy, sort of thing. He's always.
Did you think I hate to go back to the book real quick, but between the sheriff and the sheriff in the book and the sheriff, did you think the sheriff in the book was maybe a little more lame than Tom Skerritt, or maybe a little, I don't know what the word I'm trying to come up with. He was kind of a townie more than Tom Skerritt presented.
Yeah, because he's in a couple of the other books.
The sheriff is like a football player, isn't he? A football player from the local school who's now the sheriff, sort of thing. Yeah. Basically, a really big man. He's going to Johnny because it's the last attempt because he needs to do something. Because if he doesn't do something, he's going to lose his job and everything like that. So we get all this whole storyline going on about him, sort of thing. And then when he finds out that it is his best friend, the person that he relies on the most, then we have this whole torrid sequence. Here, we get. Tom Skerritt's sheriff basically jumping in all in. I believe everything that you are. I'm going for this because this is my last.
They don't have time.
I think that I know that you can do this, and it's a bit different dynamics, and there is
because they don't have any time.
Yeah,
there's no relationship
between that story, particularly the killer, the psycho killer, and the sheriff. That was the one that was just condensed too much.
All 10-minute intervals, which I think really ultimately hurts it because you're just going bang, bang, bang. We got to get this in. We got to get this in. We got to get this in. Mm-hmm. You should have chosen like which story you were going to tell, and that's ultimately my big issue with this because we don't have any time to let the characters breathe. We have to have them come in and immediately just get right to the point. Right, and it's a quick 10 minutes, a quick 15 minutes, and bang, we're done. We're moving on to the next story.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree with you, Joe. I agree with you there. Yeah. I think, excuse me, if they would have just stuck with the murder and him with the psychic abilities to see the house burning And then finally at the end with the lightning, with they should have kept that scene in there. It would have been more dramatic. It would have made more to the film. Maybe they should have left out the Stilson.
Right. Or done only Stilson and not Castle Rock murder. One or the other is the way I feel they should have gone. When I was about 6-7 years ago, I was hired to adapt someone's novel into a screenplay, and the novel basically was very episodic like this. There's this character going through all these different challenges in life, and it was all told through like the eyes of his niece. And I was like, well, the issue here is like, I feel like we need to choose one of these adventures and flesh that out over, 110, 120 pages. Because ultimately I just felt like, and I put it to him this way, I was like, your novel here is very good. The problem is I don't know if I keep it the format of the novel, if I'd actually be able to do it justice. Like, I feel like if we take these 100 pages here that you wrote about this and take that and turn it into one screenplay, it would have worked better. Now, again, like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, the guy who wrote this went on to write Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and a whole bunch of other movies that I will never have the luxury of writing anything on that level. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. Is it wrong? It's just my opinion. I still think the film is done very well. But
I mean, yeah, as you know, with an adaptation, because I've done it, I've written it, had to write the adaptions as well. And the thing is, I think where we got wrong here is what characters do you composite? You take like 5 or 6 characters and you composite them into one.
Yeah.
And what characters could you have done the same kind of storyline? Like basically Sarah and the nurse with the fire and all that. That could all have been one character, really, sort of thing. Where Sarah comes to visit, he grabs a hold of Sarah. Basically, your house is on fire, blah-de-da-de-da. That would have taken care of that, basically. And that would have fleshed out that storyline. And you could have done so many different little composites sort of thing, instead of having so many different little characters and little chapters going on sort of thing. And I think this is where this is the script writer's first adaptation as well. So that might be a problem as well. But I think they probably could have composited the characters a bit better sort of thing. Instead of having a cast of 100, maybe have a cast of 20 doing every,
right.
They did do that by making Sarah and the woman whose child Stilson holds up. They did kind of combine them.
Yeah, but that's just an idea that Sarah was in the movie at the end. I think
keep in mind.
Brooke Adams want to use her.
Yeah, that was kind of like that. That's to give you your heart, the heart-filling thing. Because the movie does paint Sarah as like the everlasting love, and there are these two star-crossed lovers that weren't together, and it also made it seem like she was in a loveless marriage. Even though she's having kids, she doesn't look very happy with her husband when you do see them.
No, she doesn't. And then she has that little moment with him. I've waited long enough. With Johnny. So
it's almost like she goes to her husband. He'll never be you. You'll never be Johnny. This is my love. I'm married to you. You're only second best.
I do wish they would have put the end of that in the movie, though, where she goes to his grave, kind of thing. She feels him touch her, and then there's some kind of closure to that. But just the way there's not a lot of closure with this movie. Keith, I am about
his hand should have come up at the end.
I need closure.
Abruptly. It ends very abruptly.
I think that they try to like. For me, I think they try to mix parts and cut like in time. As I think his name is Jim. Yes, Jim said before, the lady that was on the stage with the baby was a different person. It was not Sarah. Right. But I think what they try to do is to put it together so they can kind of like have it all in one scene instead of having like one part, because at that point she has moved away. She wasn't living near him, and here it seems like all this happening in the same area. Let's say, I think he went to New York to kill the politician, and here it's all like everything was.
Yes.
No, I think it was New York,
New Hampshire,
something like that.
In the book,
it was in New Hampshire. Yeah, it was.
Think about Hamlet, where Hamlet spends the entire play trying to decide to commit murder for his uncle, And this guy does it in like 30 seconds. It's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they leave out the brain tumor. There you go, Joe. There's not enough time.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. I mean, when I was watching the movie, you know, I think about Christopher Walken is called, right? He acts. His role is so I like him, but I was all the time when I was reading the book, this actor was coming to my mind. Yeah. His name is Steve Buscemi, something like that. I don't know. He has like a crazy face, you know, in all the movies. And I thought, I don't know. I was thinking he would have made a great part. And I realized, like, I don't know. I think like about what Keith said before. I think that he was able to kind of help Sarah realize that, for example, that show her what was like a real love, because she had a really bad relationship before him, and after, when she got married with this the new husband, in one part she realized that she was happy, but it was having like a normal life. And when he told about the ring, right, she found it and then she threw it in the toilet and flushed it. And then it was in the book was saying that means a lot. Like a kind of like she was happy with this new man, but she didn't love him as she loved Johnny. Yeah.
Her first love, I guess.
Yeah,
her true love, anyway.
Her first love not being used like crap. So,
well, I don't know. Once I was studying philosophy in university, and then they said that the true love is the one that maybe is not the one that lasts forever with you. It's like it's the one that was able to modify something in you, right? And then maybe it never happened. And it in both of them make changes. You know, I think so. I really like the last part in the book when she goes to the graveyard. I think that was a really like good closing because it took her like 9 months or 9 years to be able to actually go there and say goodbye.
Yeah.
I enjoy the movie. I think that as Joe said, that the selection of how they made it was a bit strange. I imagine they were trying to kind of condense the whole story, and then you need to kind of sacrifice parts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I never saw the movie. I just watched it today after reading the book, and I was really happy because probably was having a spoiler.
Yeah.
I mean, like ruin the.
Yeah. It was a little disjointed. I think that it was a little disjointed because of the pacing. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I did like it. I mean.
It was a lot of
I like the film. I do think that.
I mean, there's one thing that we should keep in mind. This was back in the 80s. When did the Dead Zone, the film, come out?
83.
83.
Right there. That's what I want to point out. This was a period in filmmaking when these large novels were coming out, and screenwriters had a hard time adapting such big novels together. Right. You know, like I just watched The Fog, both films. The one that was made way back in
the new one.
The newest one, and I compared it to the oldest one. I did not like the remake at all.
Remakes,
no. But
the remake is boring.
Yes,
very.
But this here book, actually, The Dead Zone, I actually think now with the progression and the technology of the screenwriters now who could adapt it better, I think a remake for Dead Zone would actually be a lot better than the original.
You're right. Yeah,
you're right though, because they were taking all those John Jakes novels and everything back on North and South. I mean, they were doing all of them.
They're all done as miniseries, weren't they? Like
you'd have to either do a miniseries or you'd have to do like a 3-hour epic
or a 3. Well, they did with the Standard. Do like they did with the Stand, like 3 or 4 nights or whatever. Break it up into a made-for-TV movie, because I don't think people are going to actually go to the theater for it, to tell you the truth.
Or you do what they did with it, and you break it up into 2 movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're doing that now, like on if you go to streaming shows like Zulu and all those other channels that stream it. If you notice those films they're actually stretching them out over 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's why a remake of this would actually be better.
They can get
even theatrical movies that are long.
Jim, it might be.
Yeah.
Even theatrical movies are long. I was actually shocked because I went to see Candyman and it was only like 85 minutes. I was like, wait a second, what?
That is?
Every other movie I go to see in the theater now is like 3 hours, is like 2.5, 3 hours long. So nowadays, yeah, maybe we could just do. I mean, you're still always going to have that issue with a novel, though.
Right.
You're always going to have that issue where like you're going to have to cut a lot of a novel to get it into a movie, no matter what the length. Like even The Stand, if we were to do The Stand as it was written, it'd be a lot longer than a 6 hour miniseries like it was in like 94.
I didn't like the reboot of that one either.
The reboot, that was worse. I have to admit, that was.
I liked it. Really, it was okay until the last episode, which is like, what the fuck is this?
Stephen King's special message to the
ultimately, though, Stephen King is notoriously difficult to adapt to the screen. Though it's very rarely done well.
I wonder if he does that on purpose. Is he trying to be difficult?
No, I think it's just a stream of consciousness writer. I think it's just how he is.
No, I think the problem basically is with Stephen King is that Stephen King writes you out a story basically, and it's basically about everyday people caught in extraordinary circumstances. But the thing is that this is what I have to give Stephen King credit for, that a lot of authors can't seem to do, is that basically when you go into Castle Rock or Derry or whatever character you're going into and whatever book you're going into, what you basically do is you get the everyman or the everywoman, basically, and you get her story. And as you're reading through her story, you're getting the setting and everything like this. But he never makes the narrative boring at all. It's not like, like what we did with like Count of Monte Cristo and Moby Dick, and basically we got like 150 page of whaling. Yeah. Stephen King can do that, give you all this information that you will find in that 150 books of whaling, but basically read it through his narrative. So basically that you're not realizing that you're pulling all this stuff in.
There's not a lot of exposition.
Screenwriting, isn't it?
Yeah. Compare Peter Straub when he was working with Stephen King when they did The Talisman together, or when they did Black House. And you can tell when Peter Straub was there, because Peter Straub was all about narrative. Sure. And Stephen King gives you narrative, but he does it in a way that a lot of authors can't seem to do, and he blends it through everything. Yeah. And I think and what happens is that you start reading a book, whether it's Cujo or Christine or Salem's Lot or It, so on and so forth. And even though he paints it in such a way that you're not aware that you're getting all this information fed through to you because of the way that he writes and the way that he presents his stories. So what should become like a really easy movie to come out with, what happens is you got a movie that's an hour and a half or 2 hours long, and you have a lot of freaking information that you thought was just a book of this size, which basically should be a book about this size. Yeah. I mean, by the time you finish Cujo, a normal author would have tripled or quadrupled the size of that book for all the information that's
right.
The same thing, like, if you take anybody who writes The Stand's a thick book. But any other novel author, that would have come out in 2 or 3 volumes, sort of thing. And that's what Stephen King's. And I think when it comes to the adaptation, I think when it goes to Hollywood, like, I'm going to make an adaptation of this. And you got to remember that the most popular of his adaptions are ones done from his short stories.
Right.
The Body, Shawshank Redemption, 3 Mile, which is basically like done by chapter, which is actually a. The Mist is another short story,
which has the worst ending of any movie I've ever seen.
The Green Mile was in like 10 parts when I got that.
Yeah, the Green Mile.
The books were like this thin. I had to go through
10 to 15 pages each chapter, and they came out weekly or every couple of months. And if you look at those adaptions, because the thing is that's what transpires first. But I think Hollywood looks at like, this is a simple story, because. When you read the jacket of a Stephen King book, there are simple stories, but not realizing that there are so many facets that's going on within the story. So I think that's why the movie versions are always let down.
Right.
The Firestarter is more about not. You have Charlie, and Charlie's starting fires, and she wants to be bought by the government in the Firestarter. But that's not the story. The story basically is that her parents were because of scientific experimentations, and they're on the run, sort of thing, and that's the story. Right. But then how do you bring this episodic story to an hour-and-a-half movie starring Drew Barrymore and George C. Scott? There's no way to give it credence. And I think The Dead Zone kind of falls that. Dead Zone's an excellent movie. I do think that if you're going to read the novel, wait a year and a half and then watch the movie, and you probably enjoy it because that's how I enjoy it. I love the movie.
I loved watching a fish tank boil. That was quite interesting.
Oh yeah,
never seen that in a
film before. That was pretty spooky.
Or animal abuse. I get all upset over animals. I swear to God, I'd rather see people die any day than the dogs or anything else. Animals are innocent.
So for the Dead Zone, would you recommend the Dead Zone? And if you do recommend it, would you recommend the book or the film?
That's a good one.
You, Craig. Would you recommend the film The Dead Zone? And how would you compare it to
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable movie and it's a good read. I think I would because I did it. I've done it back to front, but I would say read the book first because there's more meat in the book.
Yeah, you're right.
Because for example, in the book, the killer is seen as this slick, psycho serial killer. But I just wish in the film, going back to what Joe and Jim had said, that I wish there was more not character build up, but I wanted to identify with the victims.
More emphasis, maybe.
Have some more empathy with them.
Yeah.
And then also learn what were the motives. I know obviously he was a serial killer, but I want to know why. And I want to know why a pair of scissors. I mean, it's a bit of a quirky.
I think it was the clothespin.
Right.
Wouldn't that piss you guys off? Okay.
Wasn't some kind of sort of like dentist scissors?
They look like little scissors that my nan would use for doing like crafts and
scissors.
Knitting and stuff.
Scissors are just the weirdest thing.
It's just a bit of a weird quirky thing.
It is.
I was quite impressed that he was able to get them stabilized on the sink to a point where they wouldn't move. That was quite good.
Yeah. I thought he was going to put it through his heart.
That's what I thought too. And it's just like, no, I hate eyeballs. I hate it. When eyeball anything, man.
Don't watch The Terminator.
I mean, in America,
I did. I watched all that stuff, and and then you got like Friday the 13th with the arrow through the eyeball. Anything with people squashing or gouging.
Squishy things like that.
It's cringeworthy.
What I'm hearing here, Keith, is that we need to show Vicky some Lucio Fulci movies.
No, I don't know. I was watching some Fulci the other night ago. No, what movies was I watching? Oh my God.
My section of an eye you'll never get over.
Eyeballs everywhere.
The only way we commit suicide in England is by getting an IKEA kit and trying to...
That's if you can get out of IKEA.
That's if you get out of IKEA. Hey, would you like to look at this? No, I don't. This table.
I got some chill moments where I think it was like in not the fantasy, when he was having the predictions. When the Hitler scene and when he contacted his mother and when the house was on fire, that was gave me a few chills, and especially the ice hockey when I saw the frozen lake and the kids drowning. I was thinking, oh my God, don't go to that game. Yeah. But yeah, it was.
They say Omen 2 does that better.
Oh yeah,
the kids underneath the eyes and they're like.
Don't skate on ice where we grew up. We were always on ponds and stuff like that back in the day. We never thought of it.
Yeah, but I mean, we used to get like 12 to 15 feet of snow a year, and basically the temperature never went above like 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's like Newcastle. A good summer was 8 foot of snow.
I love how 80s it was when he was having rehab on the crutches, and the guy was just like.
That's bad.
Come on, man. Let's just, I know it's frozen. Like health and safety nowadays, you probably wouldn't even be able to
statistic
a risk assessment.
Care worker, they're like, go on.
But
that's another thing. It's Stephen King only got one jumper. There's any picture I've seen. That's why he writes movies, so he can write jumpers.
Yeah.
Just as long, I'm okay with Stephen King just as long as he's not acting in anything. It's like, oh no, he's trying again. What are your thoughts, David? Would you recommend Dead Zone the film?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. Sorry, yes. Was it me?
What about yourself, Jim? Would you recommend the film? And would you recommend it over a book, or would you just recommend the film on its own, or recommend both?
Open-minded.
Actually, who are you talking to, me or?
No, I say just tell everybody keep an open mind if they don't like it. That's what I would say.
Okay.
I know what Joe's going to say.
Joe's already freaked out.
Might throw a little curveball at you.
Joe's already freaked out because I put the Woods into his head now. James Woods.
Yeah, he's thinking.
He's thinking.
I actually like the. I'd recommend the book. The movie, to me, I think was kind of done in a rush. I actually look forward to a remake on a film.
Really? I bet you it happens too if they're not already thinking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like David and Craig said about the MO of the murder, using the scissors. I mean, in the book, it was a sword he killed himself with.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he cut his throat sliding down on the sword. That would actually made a better horror scene in the film.
There would have been blood cannons at least, for that one.
Yeah.
Just like, where are the blood cannons?
Because in the book, it described it as a really horrible horror scene with the raincoat he was still wearing and blood blowing everywhere. And then the MO, I didn't like the MO was changed in the. He strangled the people in the book, and he didn't stab them. He stabbed them in the movie.
Didn't he strangle a couple in the movie? The little girl or the one girl that by the bandstand?
No, he pulled out the scissors.
Was it scissors?
Yeah, he pulled out the scissors to stab her after.
Oh, I thought he kind of killed her first and then did the nasty.
The book also had an interesting thing, which I think that if you were filming this today, that they would actually, because of CSI and things like that, the reason why there's never DNA because he wore gloves and a raincoat. So when when the girls are clawing at him and crawling at him to get him off and fighting at him, they're just going against this vinyl. But so
it's weird that as a serial killer, he took his own life just in the just because the sheriff had come to his house. He just thought, that's it.
Probably ashamed. And his mother knew the whole time. Remember when he grabs her, he goes, you knew. At least they kept that in there too, because she knew both times.
Well, another thing is a cop going to prison is not normally the best thing in the world.
Oh, yeah,
not for a cop. No, everybody wants to hire on as your buddy.
But in the book, he knew that the psychic, he knew that Johnny knew who the killer was just by like that. But in the movie, you don't pick that out.
That one scene with the tunnel as well was just. I really loved how they lit that scene with the silhouette of the three guys in the tunnel. So that was great.
Yeah, kind of sort of. We went to just back going off the track a bit, but we're in Stoke-on-Trent, and then we went to near Lincoln, and there was a big long tunnel going down. It was like nearly half a mile long. Walk down with Morgan, and you could clap your hands, and it got this great acoustics. So we actually got our phones out and we're recording a song in there, The reverb was great. But the way the light comes through, it's like walking down the James Bond scene at the beginning. And you look down that barrel. Great.
Yeah.
That's the one. And it has to be Sean, not Roger.
Sean. Exactly.
Has to be Sean. I don't think we're hearing the same voices.
Yeah.
It's when they answer you back, you got to worry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And what about yourself, Joe? What are your thoughts? Would you recommend the movie?
Not enough time.
I actually love the movie regardless. I would say actually kind of the inverse is that I would recommend both. I'd say watch the movie first.
Yeah.
Because if you like the movie and you want more of it, you can go and read the novel.
That's really a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's the best.
Because there's a lot of gaps. There are a lot of gaps. And I do have to because we referenced it in one of our films. When Dave Camfield and I made The Perfect Candidate in 2012, we developed it, and we were talking to Joe Estevez, who was Martin Sheen's brother, early on. I remember meeting with him at a Denny's at like 8 a.m. in LA. We were sitting in a booth, and I had pitched to him this idea, which was going to be completely off the rails, and he wanted to kind of streamline it. And he's like, what if I'm a political candidate who is just kind of, just off the cuff, speaking like the common man, but then it turns out that I'm being conned myself. And we were like, you know what, that's really great, especially we put in a line where, why don't you ask my brother? Everyone looks at him as the president, or whatever the line was. And we wanted to throw it in there, a reference to this. He's also somebody who played a candidate that uses a baby as a human shield. So maybe it's not the best,
wasn't a great optic.
And I loved that we got to reference that, because this movie was so iconic to me growing up. Like I said, it's the first Cronenberg movie. It started me going and seeing other Cronenberg movies. Mm-hmm. I think it might have been the first. I think I was like 10 or 11 when I rented it. So I think it's probably the first time I'd seen Martin Sheen. Probably the first time I'd seen Christopher Walken too. I can't really place it. So to me, this movie has a nostalgic bent to it, because it got me started on so many other it sprouted so many branches. But I would recommend both. I love both. And for all the stuff I said about the movie, like I've said about all my opinions on this movie, just because it's not the way I would do it doesn't mean it's an incorrect way.
Right.
This movie, for what I perceive to be its faults, right or wrong, makes it work. And it's a great movie at the end of the day. Is it as good as the novel? I don't think so, but I think that's because the novel has a lot more time to breathe.
Yeah.
But I would definitely recommend both. And I'd say see the movie first.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
There's a Doctor Who, I think, that's done like a parody of this with Matt Smith, and it's called Let's Kill Hitler. And he goes back in time, and I think one of them, Hitler knocks him out. So it's a nice little parody.
That's a good one, yeah.
What's your thoughts, Vix?
Well, I was trying to figure out what to say about both of them. And then Joe said, well, watch the movie first. And then if you want more, read the book. And that pretty much takes care of my analysis, because it's true, though, if the movie doesn't have enough for you and you want more detail and you're thirsting for more of this Stephen King story, go read the book, because, my Kindle's got 600 pages of it. And I didn't think that they stepped too far off in the film. They just, like Joe was saying, it's a huge novel. I mean, it's not, it's one of his bigger ones. Normal novels are not this big, but it's Stephen King, so it's going to be hard to adapt it to screen and make it perfect. It's not going to be perfect. But I mean, I love the movie. And like I said, reading the book, I had never read the book. I don't know how it got past me. But reading the book and then reading the end, it kind of was more, like I was saying, it was heartfelt and sad. There was regret, sadness, and bittersweet kind of all wrapped up. And I thought it's a really good book. And the movie was great too.
Well, when it comes to novels, they're always going to be, especially longer novels, are always going to be more difficult, because when you write a screenplay, and this is for anyone who's familiar with screenplay format, what eats the majority of the pages is dialogue. Yeah. And generally speaking, when you're looking at a screenplay, you average about a minute per page. So when you're looking at a novel, which is so much description, especially King, who goes into a lot of description, that's going to, if you were to take everything page by page that Stephen King writes in every novel, you would be looking at maybe 5-6 pages of a screenplay per page of a novel. I don't know if that's necessarily right. So it'd be impossible to do this as like a standard movie.
Yeah, it'd be like a tube.
Massive detail, massive.
Yeah. But details.
For me, as far as the film is concerned, it's one of my favorite Cronenberg films. As far as when I say favorites, it was the easiest Cronenberg film for me to watch. Videodrome, which we'll be covering in 2 weeks, disturbs me. It makes me feel ill every time I'm seeing it. So,
it's a disturbing film.
But I like
already.
What I have to say about the Dead Zone, like,
and guess who's in it? James Wood.
The way that it's filmed, the way that it looks, the use of the acting is fantastic. Anytime you're going to put Colleen Dewhurst in a film, you're winning right there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One small role, and to be honest, when you come away from Dead Zone, I almost forget about Christopher Walken, and I always, years afterwards, I always remember Colleen Dewhurst in that small role as the domineering mother.
She was so strong.
My boy.
Such a strong character actress too.
Well, she steals everything, whether it's When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah.
Steals that away from
He was in the book Sex, the Madonna book Sex in the 90s, I think, as well. Because I remember him being in that book and sneaking in.
That was like 90 or 91 because I worked at a bookstore then. And I remember that table book. Everybody was freaking out about it. Naked Madonna.
I know, yes. You are. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as the David Cronenberg film is, I think it's a very, very good film, and I think that it stands. I think it stands alone in its merit. As a representation of Stephen King, I think it's dipping your toes into a Stephen King novel sort of thing, and David Cronenberg gave it his all and cast it fantastically well.
Yeah.
And considering that they filmed this at sub-zero temperatures in around Niagara Falls, around where Vicky and I grew up, and one of the worst winters ever in 1982, which is quite good that he was able to use all that and make use of all that. So we're not looking at fake snow here; we're looking at real snow and real environments and stuff. And as far as the Cronenberg film, I think this is a gateway drug into Cronenberg. This is the safest movie to watch of all his films.
Definitely,
it's fantastic.
Safest.
And as far as the novel is concerned, I think I love this film, The Dead Zone. I think my only problem basically is that I read the book when it came out, loved the book, The Dead Zone. The movie came out 4 years later, saw The Dead Zone, loved it, but never went back to reread the book. The book lived there in my memory, and the film lived there in my memory. I think the only problem is reading it and watching it too closely together. And I finished the book a week ago, and I watched the film yesterday, and that's pretty much what we have, sort of thing. So, but I think it's both two different entities. I think they work fantastic, and I represent both. I would recommend both of them. I'll bring people over to my house and let's watch The Dead Zone. And I'll throw the paperback at. Yeah, read the book.
I don't know that The Dead Zone's a movie that where like I'd gather friends to watch it. I feel like this is something where maybe more of a small group.
Undercrack.
Select.
Undercrack.
Do you rate it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've showed The Dead Zone to people, and they really, really liked it, sort of thing. I don't show it to people who are horror fans, the people who don't really like horror, and I'll show them The Dead Zone, sort of thing.
Well, it's intense. I mean, it's at least a thriller, if anything. So, I mean,
yeah, and it's the acting in it is fantastic. I can't fault one actor in this film whatsoever. I think the acting's fantastic.
No, the performances are all fantastic.
Mm. And this is David Cronenberg for the first time not using his stock characters. Before that, if you look at everything for The Dead Zone, every actor he used over and over and over again. This is the first time he used actors that he never worked with before. And I think he pulls it out of the bag, sort of thing. So I'll give him that.
He did a great job. I mean,
so this brings us to the end of the Literary License Podcast, The Dead Zone by Stephen King and the 1983 film by David Cronenberg. Next month, our book to screen is Cabal by Clive Barker and the 1987 film Nightbreed, where we'll be covering not the theatrical cut, but the director's cut, because it's the way that Clive Barker wanted us to
He would have.
Our next episode will be Bewitched. Of course, we'll be elongating our Bewitched. Instead of covering 4 episodes, we're covering 8 episodes. And of course, 2 for 1 is no longer Nature versus Man, or AKA the Greta Thunberg Film Festival, which we were calling it before, but is now called the 80s, where we're going to discover 1980s horror films. Now, we will not be covering any films as part of a franchise or anything like that. These will be standalone 80s films that are found basically, well, if it was the UK, you have to ask behind the counter for them.
The nasties.
Stuff that was slightly off of center. And our first 2 films will be David Cronenberg, Scanners from 1981, and Videodrome from 1983. And of course, we will be elongating at the end of the month with Dark Shadows, which will be covering 40 episodes instead of the normal 20 episodes. And of course, they'll be covering episodes from December 1968 to January 1969. So it's good night for myself, and good night, Jim, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
Good night, Craig.
Joe, Craig, Dave.
Good night. Thank you.
And it's so nice to meet you guys, and it's been good fun tonight. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
It was.
And good night, Joe.
Good night, everyone. Great seeing everybody again.
And I believe we're seeing you for the 80s as well, aren't we, Jim? Next.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. The more the merrier.
Yes.
Party. Bonus. Wayne's World.
Night, Vicky.
Night, everybody.
Good night. This week for Bewitched, and next month for Cabal.
My love, what a tale my thoughts would tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well. In a castle dark or a fortress strong with chains upon my feet, you know that ghost is me. Just like an old-time movie, gotta go from a wishing well.